Good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to the October version of the Johnston County Planning Board. As is our custom, we will begin our meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Moore, would you please lead us?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I'd also like to take a moment to say thank you to Mr. Little for joining the planning board. We're very happy to have you here as our newest member and look forward to your contributions to the board. And you picked a heck of a night to start.
Oh, boy.
Traditionally, we would do the approval of the minutes now, but I've been informed that we need a little extra time to get those minutes to where we need to be, so we're going to skip number 2 on the agenda. We will consider the minutes from the September 20th board meeting at our next planning board meeting. Also, given the number of subdivisions that we have this evening, I'm going to move the rezoning cases up, and we will hear those rezoning cases now. So if you are here, particularly if you're in the hallway and wish to speak as it relates to either rezoning case 22-27 or case 22-28, you might want to stand close by as we're going to hear those now. So, Mr. Marr, if you will take us into case 22-27.
Yes, sir. Conditional zoning case 22-27. It's a petition to rezone 3.73 acres located at 4880 NC Highway 96 in the Selma Township from agriculture residential to general business conditional zoning. Owner is Blade Hunter Purdue. Applicant is Adams and Hodge Engineering. Conditional zoning request is outdoor storage. Utilities and services are Northside Fire District and Thanksgiving Rescue. Existing land use is zoned agriculture residential and is vacant land. Surrounding land uses include zoned agriculture residential and used for those purposes, zoned in I-1, which is light industrial, and used as a woodworking shop, zoned community business and used as a gas station, auto service station, and zoned general business special use district and is a Dollar General, and also zoned MHP mobile home park and used for that purpose. Traffic count for this portion of NC Highway 96 is 2,100 vehicles per day, but that was in 2018, nothing current. NC Highway 96 appears on the Comprehensive Transportation Plan as existing major thoroughfare needing improvement. This area is located within a designated secondary growth area, which means that their low to moderate growth pressures are anticipated over the next 20 years. There were 7 notices sent out to adjacent property owners.
Any questions of Mr. Moore? Thank you, sir. Who'd like to be heard on behalf of case 22-27? Give us your name and address, please. On behalf of.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Donnie Adams with Adams and Hodge Engineering, 314 East Main Street in Clayton. My firm is the engineer on this project, planners and engineers. And like Mr. Moore said, what you got before you is an outdoor storage. We believe it's in an appropriate located area with the industrial uses, general business, special use districts in the very close vicinity. Like been before you a few times recently on other projects, this is our similar layout, similar design. We have our interior layout of the parking areas. We have perimeter with landscaping buffers, as well as the a combination of an 8-foot opaque fence or an 8-foot fence with a 4-foot berm with evergreen landscaping on that. We've provided the conditions. I think a couple were added during the TRC review, which have been consistent. We've read those, and we have no issue with the conditions. We are aware that that moving forward, should we move forward from here, we're going to the commissioners. After that, should we get approved, we realize we've got to pull our permits for erosion control, stormwater. We're ready to do that. Understand we'll comply with everything set forth in both of those ordinances. And with that being said, be happy to answer any questions you guys may have.
And just so I'm clear, this is just for parking of boats, trailers, RVs. There's no structures on the property?
Correct. No structures. What has been typical, we we did leave in the conditions, as things grow, that it would have an option to add not an enclosed building, but a covered storage area, like a pole barn type setup.
I think I did see 24-hour access was on here too.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Any other questions? Thank you, sir. Anyone else like to be heard as it relates to case 2227? Yes, sir. Give us your name and address, please.
I'd like to know my property back right up to the corner. They just
Okay.
drained
Yeah, if you'll give us your name and address first.
Anthony Pleasant, 5016 Highway 96 North.
Okay, thank you, sir. What's your question?
My property, they go right around my property. I just stepped it off earlier, and it's 78 feet from my bedroom window to their property line.
Okay.
I mean, that's not much further than from here to that other side of that wall over there. And they're gonna have 24-hour access, and it actually surrounds my property. I've got a bonus room on the back of my house. It's got 12 windows in it. What am I gonna be looking at? Now I'm looking at pretty grass and a, halfway decent backyard. I've got a nice place. This is gonna depreciate my property. I don't know how much. What's it gonna do to the price of my property? Is it gonna bring it down? I mean, I've got a lot of equity involved in that. And they're gonna just fence right around me. They can park anything they want to out there once they get the fence up and everything. People in and out all the time. I mean, literally right in my backyard. It's not far from my house to what they're wanting to do. And right in the very corner, there's a oak tree that take 3 men to put their arms around. If they get close to that, they're gonna kill it. And it's right in the corner on my property. He don't have it about 40 foot to get through there, correct? How far is it from the bottom, the corner, from the back big oak tree across that fence where the pond's at? 50 feet?
Not sure exactly where you're talking about.
Right at the very corner. You go back up to the left, you had it there. From that very, go up to your right, just Ted. From that corner, right straight across, 'cause that's their property line. On their property starts on the other side. Ladies and gentlemen, right here. It's only about, what, 45, 50 foot maybe? And there's a pond there, and I don't know what how are they gonna get around and get through there in that little bit of, and what are y'all gonna put in that section?
Have you, sir, have you seen a copy of the site plan?
You what, sir?
You mailed a copy of the
Yes,
site
sir,
plan?
I had a copy of it. Here's one. I've got this.
Okay, I just want to make sure you've seen it.
Yeah, I've seen it. I just walked out and left it a while ago.
Yeah, it's on the screen.
Yeah, let me give you this. This might help you understand a couple of the way the development is laid out relative to your property.
See, my house is right in the corner right here. That's my house and my shop, but it don't look nothing like you see here. That is, from the back of my house to the property line right there is roughly 159 feet. And that's not very far at all. When you're standing on my deck, I'm looking right at it. I've got a wraparound deck around the back of the house. I mean, that's right there where the house is at. That's where I live, right there. That's it. That's my house.
Okay.
And it's an acre there. It goes down. My property line there's a creek that the state put in. It goes from 96 all the way back into them woods right there, a drainage ditch. But I don't know what's it gonna do to my property value? That's my main concern. And I'll be looking at, I don't know, no telling what, every day from now on. I don't agree with it. I mean, if you want my 2 cents worth, I don't agree with it. I mean, I wish it wouldn't happen.
Okay. It appears to me, at least from the site plan standpoint, you can have a little time to study that if you want. They are proposing, just for your information, a fence surrounding the property. Let me get back to it here.
Yeah,
which will be
8 foot.
an 8-foot opaque fence surrounding the entire property line. So, you know, in terms of what you will see as it relates to that property now, it'll be a fence,
yeah,
basically.
and the top of a Winnebago.
Yeah, depending on how tall the Winnebago is. If
Yeah,
you look to the
you
right,
know,
you'll see.
yeah, you know what I'm saying. I mean, and the 24-hour access, I mean, I'm gonna have people around my house anytime. I mean, I don't like that.
Okay.
And none of y'all would. Can I keep this, sir?
Yes, sir.
Or do you need
Yeah,
it?
no problem. Any questions of the gentleman? Okay, thank you, sir.
All right, thank you. You got anything to say, Nick?
Anyone else like to be here? Yes, ma'am. Give us your name and address, please.
Annette Caldera, 501496. That line right there, right there, I'm on the other side of it, and basically that goes between mine and his yard. And I've got grandchildren. I've worked at U-Haul for 3 years. There ain't nothing with storage, and that's with convertibles and everything. Nothing but a bunch of homeless people, drugs. I mean, just people sleeping out in things. And I just am uncomfortable that in my yard with the grandchildren and everything. And I've got 15 acres, so the fence goes through my yard too. It'll be my backyard and the side of it.
Look on the screen there, though, the property highlighted in red. Is that yours, ma'am?
No, that says Norwood North.
That's me.
Okay.
I'm Norwood
Okay.
Norris's daughter.
Oh, okay.
Okay,
I've got the death certificate and the deed and everything.
okay.
Okay.
And that from her went from her bedroom.
Sir, we need, for the minutes, we need to be.
And it's like, with the grandchildren and the nieces and everything, Norwood left me this. I would be comfortable somewhere and not have to worry about nothing. And my throat is sore, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. Okay.
And I've worked U-Haul 3 years. I know what a storage does. I clean them. And that's the vehicles and everything. And the vehicles, the yard of the vehicles is worse than the indoor storage because you ain't got nothing you got to get in to jump over or anything unless it's just a fence.
Any questions? Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Anyone else like to be heard as it relates to 2227? All right, Donnie, I've got a question for you, if you don't mind. So we got this on the site plan, this finger that goes up to the north and is in between those two houses. What's the purpose of having that and fencing that in rather than running that fence straight across to the pond and, you know, creating that barrier in between those two houses?
So, understand that question. So the purpose of that, the owner wanted to have the opportunity to fence his entire property in, doesn't have plans to go beyond the pond. And we realize we have to, again, deal with stormwater, so there's an area to expand to handle that. It's just securing his entire site, and a couple things that we mentioned, as you guys know, we're talking about an 8-foot opaque fence, and then landscaping in front of that, evergreen landscaping on 10 or 20 foot, depending on where we are on the site. And then in the option, in option 2, that 8-foot opaque, we're doing a combination of a 4-foot berm with an 8-foot fence, but on top of that 4-foot berm, we're proposing landscaping, evergreen landscaping, 4-foot height at the installation. So we feel like we're providing a great barrier between this use and existing uses around.
Where would the closest outdoor storage be? You know, relative to this area is what a question I was gonna ask.
That is a question that I do not know the answer to.
Okay. Have you read, Donnie, have you read the conditions? Are you comfortable with all of those?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any other questions? Mr. Adam?
So you're basically saying in that section, there will be no storage?
That's right, no plan to do that. What's shown is the area that he plans to do. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
And the conditions have all the lighting and everything too, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Thanks, sir. We'll bring it back to staff.
Staff recommendations, approval based on the consistency statement and conditions.
Mr. Mark, can you remind us again about the surrounding uses and their zonings?
Yes, there's a, well, obviously agriculture residential around there, but also right across the street, and if you'll see in your pictures, you can probably see one of the businesses I mentioned. There's zoned I-1. It's a woodworking shop. Right up the road, not very far, is a neighborhood activity mode, which is 96 and Live Oak there. Right there, it's community business and used as a gas station, and there's also one next to it as an auto service station. Also a general business
Right.
special use, which is a general dollar, or a Dollar General. And then further down 96 away from that is a mobile home park.
Yeah, that's for the dog, yeah. I know it is.
And is this identified as a community activity node?
It is at the intersection of 96, and I believe that's
Little Divine.
Little Divine, not Live Oak.
Thanks, sir.
Yes.
Entertain a motion.
How many parking or outdoor lots were proposed on this one? That might be a question for Donnie.
87.
87?
Well, I'll make a motion. Based on the consistency with the surrounding properties and meeting the requirements that we have, including the dark sky lighting and things like that, that help make for a less impactful business, along with the opaque fence and the landscape buffers and the berms, I make a motion to approve.
Second.
All right, I have a motion approved by Ms. Hackler, a second by Mr. Hudson. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
One opposed. That'll go forward to the Board of County Commissioners as a recommendation for approval at their December.
Yes, sir.
You know the date?
First Monday in December.
First
but I
Monday
do
in
not-
December, all right. I'm going to have to start right now.
December
All right.
2nd.
Case 2228.
I do not have much of an introduction for this. If you'll remember, this was, came before you, this parcel came before you last month as a major subdivision. It was partially within the environmentally sensitive area according to GIS. This is a map amendment petition to remove that parcel from the ESA. Its owner is John Robert Foscue and Rainey Celeste Foscue. Applicant is Adams and Hodge. served by the 5210 Fire District and Rescue Squad, and it's located in the secondary growth area. And I have put in the section on environmentally sensitive area district into your notes there, and also a response from our Public Utilities Director. And I believe Mr. Adams is here to talk about it.
Okay, thanks, sir.
State my name again?
We got you.
All right. All right, so yes, what's before you now, like Todd mentioned, is a rezoning. This is, I guess, you guys have seen a few of these come through recently. Used to be, prior to the ordinance change, used to be something that was handled at the CD level, construction drawing level, with utilities. It was a stormwater thing. Whenever the ordinance changed and lot sizes were brought into it, it became a zoning, more enforced as a zoning issue, so that's why we're before you and going to the commissioners later, as I understand that. And so, on this one, it does lie within the ESOD, the overlay as shown on GIS, and our contention is that it's not accurate actually on the ground, how the topo is, where the water goes, it actually flows away, and I'm hoping that is part of what you guys were have. It shows our graphics showing the arrows, drainage arrows of going away from that ESOD. And so we've sat down, spent some time with Chandra, went over this, and she's provided an email basically stating that she concurs with our assessment of it, that this parcel is not physically located within the ESOD. I'd be happy to answer any questions about that if you have any.
I think we're good. Thank you, sir. Okay. Anyone else like to be heard as it relates to case 22-28? All right, bring it back to staff.
Staff recommendation would just have you refer to the response from Chandra Farmer with the Johnston County Public Utilities.
Thank you, sir.
Being that the Johnston County Director of Utilities agrees that this should be removed, I make a motion to approve.
Second.
All right, motion to approve by Ms. Hackler, a second by Mr. Moore. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, now we'll move on to subdivisions. All right, so, Mr. Moore, you can relax for a minute. So just so for everybody's information, the vast majority of land in Johnston County is zoned agricultural residential, which means by right you can farm it or you can build houses on it. Therefore, it's not up to this board to decide if a subdivision is appropriate for a given area or even necessarily if it's a good idea for a given area. It's solely to determine if the preliminary subdivision plats presented tonight meet the standards explicitly set forth in Article 3, which is subdivisions, of the Johnston County Land Development Code and the Johnston County Land Development Design Manual. As we are the final approving body for all subdivisions, the subdivision portion of tonight's meeting is considered a quasi-judicial hearing. As such, if you wish to oppose a proposed subdivision, you must provide evidence, one, that you have standing, which means that you're directly impacted by the proposed subdivision, and two, that the evidence you're submitting is competent, directly relevant to the proposed subdivision, and substantial. And when I say competent, I mean that you must demonstrate that you have licenses, education, or relatable experience with regard to the subject matter that you're providing testimony on if you want us to consider it when making our decision. It's long been the policy of this board, if somebody's willing to attend a meeting, we're going to give you broad leeway to state your case and ask questions. However, I've been on this board for 13 years, and this is the longest agenda that I've ever seen. So, as such, I'll ask you to be respectful of your fellow members of the public who have items later on in the agenda and restrict your comments to 5 minutes or less and avoid repetitive testimony. As we all know, quantity doesn't necessarily equal quality. We don't need to hear the same thing 5 times. If you need some time to coordinate among yourselves to get a spokesman together for all of you that have a common issue, please feel free to do so in the hallway. If you're not providing competent, directly relevant, and substantial testimony, or if you're providing testimony that's repetitive, I'm going to ask you to please take a seat so we can keep this going and moving along in an expedient manner and be respectful of everyone. Please also note, the plats before us tonight are what we call preliminary plats. There's several additional permitting and review steps that have to be performed by staff of the county or other entities such as DOT after tonight's proceedings for items like stormwater management, traffic improvements, and so on. If you've got a question about any of these subdivisions on items that occur later in the permitting or design review process, whereas in previous meetings, we would allow the dialogue between the public and the applicant to answer some of those questions. Again, because of the length of our agenda tonight, I may ask you to contact staff of the planning department with any questions that they've got, and they can help you get answers. We want to get you answers to your questions, but we're not going to have the time tonight to have some of the dialogue that we've had in the past if you've been here before. They'll be more than happy to get with you and answer your questions. We've got a long night ahead of us. I want to be considerate of the people that are here for items later in the agenda. So given that these are quasi-judicial proceedings, I'm going to ask that anyone that'd like to speak relative to any of the subdivisions, whether you're in favor of, whether you're representing the subdivision, or whether you're opposed to the subdivision, please stand and raise your right hand. I've got to swear you in. All right. Again, if you're going to speak on any subdivision this evening, I need you to stand and raise your right hand. All right. Do you swear that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right. Mr. Marr, Bryant Pond Road Track. And I'll remind everyone, too, while you're getting ready, Mr. Marr, please do give us your name and address when you come to the podium. We need that for the minutes. And please address all questions to the board, and we will do our best to get you answers and consider your items. Thank you.
First up is Bryant Pond Road Tract. Owner is S&E Chessies LLC. Developer is AJP Properties LLC. Surveyor is Kirk Lane with Trueline. Its location is 4544 Bryant Pond Road in Meadow Township. It's served by the Meadow Fire District and Benson Rescue. It's 18.31 acres, 8 lots proposed, Johnston County Public Water, individual septic. Traffic count for Bryant Pond Road was 220 vehicles per day. Last count reported was in 2016. This portion of Bryant Pond Road does not appear on the comprehensive transportation plan as needing improvement. This is an excerpt from the Johnston County Land Design Manual. Developments creating 4 or more lots where no easement exists and where the parent tracts have direct road frontage and easement shall not be allowed. The development must dedicate a right-of-way meeting the requirements of this section. A waiver may be allowed if determined by the planning board that in pursuit of this section, a hardship is created upon the property that provides no benefit to the safety, welfare, and quality of life of the public.
Any questions, Mr. Marr?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Have we seen one, I know we've done a lot of waivers recently for something like this. Have we seen one with 8 driveways recently? I know we've seen like 2 or 3, but I don't know if we have seen 8.
Well, this is one, it looks like they're proposing one driveway, and it comes in, it's just an easement, and then it's a access easement to each individual lot.
Okay.
So it is only one entrance into the subdivision off of Bryant Pond Road.
Okay.
But have we seen a design such as this that serves quite this many
Many.
lots? I don't recall one.
No, I don't think so.
Maybe, but it's been over a year ago at least.
Okay.
We saw one,
I think it had 5.
I think, as we came out of
I don't think it was quite
the
8.
pandemic, late 2020, I think, and it was 6 or 7 lots, and it entered on one end, and the easement came all the way across and terminated,
Okay.
as opposed to leaving it, having 2.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Who'd like to be heard on behalf of Bryant Pond Road Tract?
Good evening, Board. Kirk Lane, Trueline Surveying, here representing the Bryant Pond Road Tract. As Mr. Morris said, it is an access easement with a shared driveway that will service these 8 lots. The reason they have selected this particular design is that the soils are not conducive for a street build and for septic area.
Where do the suitable soils lie on this property?
about the first 25% is suitable, and the rest of it checked out to not be suitable according to the EOP, the engineer on site permit.
So the first 25% up next to Bryant Pond Road.
All the good soil's right up at the road.
Okay,
I guess is where the field is.
yeah.
So explain for everyone's benefit the hardship that that would create.
If you put in a DOT road, it has to be so many feet long that it would exceed the permeable soil area, and you would be building a road to no houses at the end.
Any other questions?
Kurt, I may be missing it. What's the offset from the edge of Bryant Pond Road to where the easement turns?
You talking about the length of the curve?
Yeah.
It's 30 feet.
Okay.
I don't know if you can see the little tangent there, because I don't know how big your copy is, but that's a 25-foot radius.
Okay.
There's a little short tangent that gets to the right of way.
I see there is a voluntary ag district on the map as well. Is that noted on the plat?
It should be in the notes section in the top right-hand corner.
Okay.
Do you know what that is there, Kurt? Do you know what it is?
What?
What kind of operation it is, the VAD?
I do not.
It looked like road crop.
I don't know if there's a building on it or not. It is row crop, but I don't know if there's any storage in there as well. I don't see a building on it. Yeah, just all row crop. Yeah, all row crop over there too.
There is a building.
All right. Any other questions? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Anyone else like to be heard as it relates to Bryant Pond Road track? Yes, ma'am.
Hey, good evening. My name is Amelia Bethany Hockaday. I'm a prior school nurse, retired, and I'm here because,
Can you give us your address, please?
well, I have multiple addresses because I own 3 LLCs right beside this property.
We just need one for the minute, so you can just. move
Okay,
on.
4702 Bryant Pond Road.
Perfect. Thank you, ma'am.
Faith Meta LLC would be the first one. The second one would be Amelia Francis LLC, and the third one would be Luther John Monroe LLC, about 179 acres. My son lives there. My concern is that area is already congested over at the other end of the road, and my husband and I own all 3 LLCs, and we bought Faith Meadow, which is like a 96-acre farm, to kind of give some room. So that area, and there is my uncle being on this property they're talking about, and there is a old house, and there's a barn back there, and there's some other stuff back there. My concern is with 80-foot wide lots, we're talking probably mobile homes, and there's already a lot of mobile homes on that road, a lot, which I don't have a problem because I have mobile homes. But at the same time, that's going to make the area more congested, and congestion's not what it's all about. I wish I'd known about this earlier. Ag Carolina told me when I bought the farm right beside it that they would help me buy this farm if it ever came up for sale, but it did not. We grow coastal Bermuda, tobacco, peanuts, sweet potatoes. Timmy McClam helps helps me. So it's a beautiful farm. It's a beautiful area. I can't tell you, there's ponds on it. My goal, I'm retired now, and I've made this very well known, is a horse farm. A horse farm where we can board horses. We've got coastal Bermuda on the farm. We have water on the farm. I've already made multiple trails on the farm for this to be done. And my concern would it be so congested that it would not be as appealing. And I'm trying to do something for Johnston County that would be nice for families and be nice for the area. Does anyone have any questions for me?
Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate it. Anyone else like to be heard as it relates to Bryant Pond Road track? All right, bring back staff.
Staff recommendation was denial due to not having a dedicated right-of-way meeting the county requirements.
I'll give you my opinion. I think we've seen, this hammerhead configuration in a couple subdivisions before, and I think we've asked for some guidance on, exactly how many is too many. And I don't know that we necessarily have a good answer for that, but I think, 8 lots seems to me to be beyond what is reasonable to be served by an access of this type. We have our codes and ordinances for a reason to require either a smaller number of lots or a dedicated right-of-way. Obviously, I understand the hardship behind not being able to provide a dedicated right-of-way, so it points me in the direction of this being too many lots for this parcel. So that's my opinion.
That's my concern is, like I said, I know on the, there's a map, the available density says 26, and so, for the size of the property, 8 is better than 26 in my personal opinion. But at the same time, I do have concerns with, like I said, the way the design is, because, like I said, what number is too many for this layout?
I certainly think this is more than we've ever seen, and we've been uncomfortable prior to this.
Yes.
So,
With less.
With
With
less,
less,
yeah.
So with those concerns, I make a motion to deny.
I'll second.
All right, got a motion to deny by Ms. Byrd, a second by Mr. Moore. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, Herring Road track.
Herring Road Track, owner and developer Rick Brady, surveyor's True Line. It's Herring Road at Eugene Walker Lane and the Boone Hill Township. It's served by Boone Hill Fire District and Princeton Rescue. It's 15.605 acres, 12 lots proposed. Johnston County Public Water individual septic. Traffic count in 2019 was 200 vehicles per day. This portion of Herring Road does not appear on the comprehensive transportation plan as needing improvement. In regards to direct driveway access on Herring Road, major subdivisions to be located on a local road shall be designed so that there shall be no more than one direct residential driveway connection per 500 feet along the same side of a local road unless it can be demonstrated that the proposed subdivision cannot be physically designed, that no reasonable alternative exists, or it would create an unreasonable hardship without a corresponding public benefit to prohibit individual driveway access onto the local road. Also, just like the last subdivision that was here, it also directs you to the 4+ lots not having a right-of-way, meeting county requirements. That can be waived if they prove a hardship.
All right, any questions of staff?
I got a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Am I reading this wrong, or you can enlighten me here? Lot 10 and 1, 4 and 5, do they show a driveway?
See one. I didn't see one either.
It looks like it says, I don't know about 4 and 5, but
I would imagine that would infer being sold.
Single,
Individual driveway.
right.
So in other words, they're talking about probably, if you're inferred, they're gonna have to meet with DOT as far as how
The-
far they are from that shared driveway.
DOT has already mandated that there will be shared driveways required for all lots.
All lots, so 10 and 1 probably couldn't have their own driveway.
A condition that they put in, and it's in our conditions as number 15 per NCDOT, the shared driveways are required.
Yeah, that was my question was, is there gonna be enough space for lot 1 to be able, with that shared driveway of 2 and 3?
Well, then when they put something like we just saw in the previous one,
Right.
coming into the shared driveway and then coming down?
Well, we'll ask the applicant, see if he can enlighten us a little bit. Who'd like to be heard on behalf of the Herring Road tract?
Good evening, Board. Kirk Lane, True Line Surveying, 205 West Main Street. I forgot to give my address a while ago.
Thanks, Kurt.
So yes, the requirement is for shared driveways. On the bottom side of this screen, there's 9 lots, so it's an odd number. So we looked at the distance requirement for driveway access. And if you put a driveway on lot 1, you can make the DOT distance requirement to the shared driveway between 2 and 3, but you couldn't on the other end. So that's why number 1 was chosen as an individual driveway. Shared driveway on 2 and 3, there's already an existing easement getting between 3 and 4, and then 5 and 6 and 7 and 8 will share a driveway. Same thing across the street, 11 and 12 will share a driveway, and then there'll be a driveway adjacent to the driveway on the opposite side of number 11. So it won't be shared, but it's as close as we can get to without a previously shared driveway agreement.
All right, let me make sure I understand that. Going down the left side of the map, I know left is a correct
Left is
way of
down.
saying direction here, but left side of the map, individual driveway on 1, more than 500 feet to a shared driveway between 2 and 3.
Yes, sir.
All right, and then 4 and 5 are going to share that
Easement.
easement?
The
existing-
already existing driveway and easement, yes, sir.
Okay, existing driveway and easement. 6 and 7 will share one,
Yes,
and
sir.
8 and 9 will share one.
Yes, sir.
All right, and those are 500 feet apart?
Yes,
as well. Okay, and then up the right side, 10, all right, 12, 11 and 12 are going to share one, right
Yes, sir.
across from 2 and 3.
Yes, sir.
And then 4, or 10, all right, how's 10 going to be served?
Individual driveway.
Okay, individual.
We don't own quite enough to be exactly across the street from the existing one, but we get really close.
Okay.
And how far away is that, Kurt, from the other driveway?
How far, between 11 and 10? Can't see that.
About 225 feet?
C5 arc length.
It's pixelated.
And then the easement, so the easement is serving 4 and 5, and then the other property owners as well in the back?
Correct. It's already there.
Okay,
They already own an easement across this property to get to it.
okay. That's a lot for that easement.
And the cemetery on lot 4,
Yeah.
is there going to be anything else on lot 4, or is that going to just be left as is?
There'll be a house on lot 4.
Now, quiet neighbors. Who maintains the cemetery?
The family of the people that are buried there, and there are discussions, or there will be discussions about creating a cemetery lot with Johnston County and creating an individual lot for that. They already have an access easement. That's one of the purposes of
Okay.
the previously recorded access easement, was to access that cemetery from there.
Okay.
So whether it becomes a lot or not, or stays on lot 4 and becomes a cemetery on 4, the permanent access easement to get to it to maintain is already in place.
Okay.
already recorded.
Okay.
Kurt, does your lot size, it's .785 acres, encompass the cemetery, or is that out?
Right now, it encompasses the cemetery.
Okay.
They actually own the dirt.
So what is the hardship that created this situation here?
There's not enough good soil
Same
to
thing. before.
maximize the lot count. If you built a road to serve the first 4 lots, you don't have enough houses on that road for that road to ever be taken over by DOT. It'll become private roads or shared driveways. You would end up with 4 private roads, 4 private road maintenance agreements, and
And the VAD here, do you know what that is?
It looked like road crop to me.
yeah, it's a large piece, so I'm sure there's storage on it somewhere as
Okay.
well. Yeah, right there.
And I'm assuming you do have that note on your plans,
It's
right?
supposed to be on the top right-hand corner, yes, ma'am.
Okay. So this is a minor question, but how do you handle mail in a situation like this?
Well, we would like to put 2 mailboxes per driveway
Okay, so you'll have individual mailboxes, okay.
on the same pedestal, but there was a question that someone asked, I think you did, let me know how it turns out at Raleigh Road. Not at Raleigh Road, at the one where we had 1 lot, and by putting a mail kiosk up for 1 lot, the postmaster said a mailbox was fine.
Okay.
I cannot guarantee that's what they'll say
What
this
they'll
time.
say for here.
That's right.
If you had
that
to put up a kiosk, where do you think you might do that?
at the shared driveways,
Okay,
because that's
Okay.
going to be the only access point for the mail carrier to pull in, unload the mail, and turn around and back
okay,
out.
okay. And I'm sorry I have to ask that question, but,
Oh, no.
you know, it's creating a lot of problems for us in
These
some
mailboxes
places.
will
so-
be at the end of the access easement, so that the mail carrier can get all the way off the road and not stop in the road and service the
Okay.
mailbox.
Okay.
All right, so just to reconfirm, these shared driveways, particularly the 2 on the, I'll get my north, south, east, west right here in a minute. The
I know, I've been going
western
back.
side of Herring Road, those are you've placed those 500 feet away.
Yes, sir.
Because I was measuring 250, but it might be a half-size set of plans.
That's what I was gonna ask. I'm measuring 228 and 225.
The scale may be.
Yeah, these might not be scaled right.
We have to petition these to DOT for site distances and other things as well. I don't think there's a site distance problem out there, but you never know.
All right, any other questions? Thanks, sir.
Thank you.
Anyone else like to be heard as it relates to the Herring Road track? All right, staff.
Staff recommendation was denial due to direct driveway access onto Herring Road and lots not being internally served.
Point of discussion for the board. If they decide to take that cemetery out, that drops the lot size for the remaining portion below 30,000 square feet.
So they would just potentially lose that lot.
Mhm. Or could make lot 3 bigger.
Yeah. Could be added on to lot 3, but it's below the 30,000 square foot minimum.
I mean, it's sort of similar to the last one. I mean, I think Kirk's done the best he can trying to maximize the number of lots and utilize the shared driveways, but,
That's 4.
I mean,
Yeah.
how many is too many? I mean, some parcels are just set up to be subdivided, yes, but subdivided into less parcels.
And there's 4 shared driveways and
That's
an
what I was saying.
additional 2 driveways.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's just,
That's
It's a funky
a
parcel,
lot.
and
It's
it's
a
hard
weird
to make
parcel.
work, I understand, but,
That's 6 driveways and a little stretch of road.
and
So I get it's a weird parcel, but same thing, like, that's a lot of shared driveways.
I agree. Are you in a motion? You want me in a motion?
I'll second.
I'll fight it out.
So,
You can make all the motions.
I guess. It's a good thing I came. She made one.
You're doing a
Made
good
one.
job. man. Good job.
So, you know, this is similar to the one that we just saw, and while we are not anti-development, this is not exactly what we had in mind, not putting 6 driveways in a very small area. So,
The curve.
with that in mind, I make a motion to deny.
Second.
A motion to deny by Ms. Hackler, second by Ms. Davis. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Legacy Farms.
Legacy Farms, owner and developers A&B Partnership, surveyors Dalton Engineering and Associates. It's on Antioch Church Road near the intersection with Crocker's Nub Road in the O'Neill's Township, served by O'Neill's Fire District and Thanksgiving Rescue. It's 24.095 acres, 15 lots proposed, Johnston County Public Water, individual septic, traffic count for this road is not available. This portion of Antioch Church Road does not appear on the comprehensive transportation plan as needing improvement. This parcel is partially within the environmentally sensitive area, however, no floodplain appears on the parcel.
Any questions of staff? All right, who'd like to be heard on behalf of Legacy Farms? Yes, sir. Give us your name and address, please.
Good evening. My name is Marty Gilbert. My address is 273C Blue Pond Road in Clayton. With this property, we have a little bit over 24 acres. We're proposing 15 lots in this particular subdivision. We have had Dan Bliley from Smithfield, who is a licensed soil scientist, come out to help us with the design, as well as Brown Environmental Group and Charles Pender from Johnston County Public Utilities have done a buffer call on the back of the property where we have the wetlands. Any further questions on that? And by the way, all of the lots will be over 40,000 square feet.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you.
Anyone else like to be heard as it relates to Legacy Farms? Yes, ma'am.
My name is Barbara Crabtree. I reside at 35 East Calvert Court, Clayton, North Carolina. I'm representing my mother, Pansy Evans, whose property is adjacent to this property. Had a lot of conversation with Mr. Kurt Lane at True Line in regards to the property line. We did have some disagreement with where it was originally surveyed at. As of this morning, it's my understanding that we've come to an agreement for a property line agreement. Just want to make sure that we don't have any opposition as long as that agreement is done. The only other question I would have is on that side of the property that is adjacent to my mother's, is there any kind of berm or fence looking at being built on that property line?
Typically, the buffers are not required between like uses in agriculture since they're both zoned agriculture residential. It is not part of our land development code to require it. We can ask the developer if their intent is to install one, but typically it is not.
Okay. Thank you.
Anyone else like to be heard as it relates to legacy farms? Yes, sir.
Good evening. My name is Sylvester Holder. I live at 363 Crockers Knob Road. And with the current subdivisions that's being built in the area, it has made Crockers Knob Road like the catch-all connector for Highway 39, 222, 96. You know, they take Crockers Knob Road to Antioch Church Road, and it's becoming more and more dangerous. We are averaging now, seems like every other week, a hit and run. We have people flying them down the road, they especially on Antioch Church Road, to get to 96 or to wherever at. Just talking to my neighbor and my classmate, he's for it. I wish we had a talk beforehand, but I'm not for it. Even he has suffered a couple of people wrecking his property in the last, I'm gonna say 2 years, more than one. They need to move it someplace else. It's becoming more and more dangerous. And not only am I a resident of that, I'm also a pastor of the church on 222, St. James Church of Christ. So with that in mind, you know, I believe in our community. We got a great community, but we don't need to be priced out of our community either. That's it.
Thanks, sir. Anyone else like to be heard as it relates to legacy farm? All right, bring back to staff.
Staff recommendations, preliminary approval subject to the conditions and requirements in staff report.
We did that question about the berm. I assume that there's buffers or berms planned between the
We
property.
don't have any plans to put one there, no, sir.
Okay, thanks, sir.
I'd also just like to point out that the 2 of the 3 school districts that are in this for the subdivision are already over capacity with enrollment numbers. I would just like to make that note.
I make a motion for approval.
All right, I have a motion for approval by Mr. Little,
I'll second.
a second by Mr. Moore. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. It's approved. Noose Ridge.
I believe Mr. Adams is waiting on a little bit more information, and he has a motion that he would like to bring forward to the board.
Okay.
Good evening again, Donnie Adams, Adams and Hodge Engineering, 314 East Main Street in Clayton. And I humbly come before you once again on this project and request that it be tabled for another month. And my understanding is it's very close to being able to come see you next time. That's my hope.
Thank you, sir.
Appreciate your consideration.
Yes, sir. Entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to table it till the next month's meeting.
Motion to table by Mr. Hunt.
Second.
Second by Mr. Moore. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Helen Stevenson tract.
Mr. Chairman, I'll be recusing myself from this subdivision.
Hang on just 1 second, Steve.
Oh, no,
Okay.
not yet.
I thought, all right.
Oh, wait a minute, let's see. Oh, no, sorry.
Okay. All right.
Okay, Helen Stevenson tract, September 2022. Jones Creek LLC is owner and developer, Surveyors Freedom Firm PC. It's 4125 Zacks Mill Road in Pleasant Grove Township. It's served by West Johnston Fire District and 5210 Rescue Squad. It's 29.24 acres, 31 lots proposed, Johnston County Public Water, individual septic. Traffic count for this road is 450 vehicles per day, and that was in 2019. This portion of Zacks Mill Road does not appear on the comprehensive transportation plan as needing improvement. You will note that if you'll go to the GIS map that is right after your staff meeting note, it's changed a little bit. This is a smaller parcel. He's divided it from the last time that it's been before you.
Has anything of significance been removed?
The section to the southeast or southwest has been taken out of consideration. If you see on the, parcel used to be southwest of the red line on
Is that where the pond, the waste pond was?
I'm not familiar 100%, but I think that was discussions in the past.
So
That's no longer in there.
that is no longer
The
in,
piece that you're now looking at
is
is
the upper portion.
right.
So the waste lagoon has been removed from
I'll
consideration.
let the
Okay, all right,
applicant
that's fine.
answer.
I'll ask that.
Any further
Sorry,
questions of
Todd.
staff?
no problem.
All right. Who'd like to be heard on behalf of Helen Stevenson tract?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Marcus Burrow with Hewitt Law Group, 101 Blackstone Lane in Selma. Represent the developer in this. And to answer your question, yes, the lagoon to the south has been cut off. It has been sold to a separate LLC. It is no longer part of this subdivision whatsoever.
Okay.
So it is a smaller tract that we are looking at. So the bottom part, no longer in consideration. We are looking at 31 lots, interior cul-de-sacs. I have Mr. Carlos Bagley with Freedom Firm, who is the surveyor, has done the site plan for you. And as you see also, we have cut out the pond on the south side of this as well. So, have any questions for myself or Mr. Bagley? Be happy to answer them.
Where will responsibility of the pond lie to the new owners of the?
It will be the new owners of the parcel to the south.
I have a couple of questions about lot 27. I don't know if that's something you could answer or if that would be better for Carlos.
The barns on it.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Hey, good evening. Carlos Bagley, 63 Washington Road, Clayton, North Carolina. And, well, I'll go ahead and say we got our bell kiosk at 18 and 19.
I appreciate that, Carlos.
We'll get that one out. 27, all right?
You've got barns on there.
Yes, ma'am.
Are those remaining or are they being removed? Or?
I would assume they would be removed.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you've got a gravel path that's shown across lots 27 to 31.
That would all be removed.
Okay,
Everything will be served through the road system.
okay.
We've
had a lot of problems with paths and things like that.
Conditions and,
Yeah, so I just wanted to be very sure that this was not going to remain or cause an issue.
Yeah, what you're seeing is kind of an as-built what's there now, but
Okay.
it'll be removed. Also, we've had soil scientists out here that, we've had the county out here also, so 31 lots is what we will have approved.
Any other questions?
around the pond, Carlos, would there be a landscaping buffer put around the pond by you guys on this side or by the owners of the part of the land at the bottom?
Right now, it's shown on the map, there's a 50-foot buffer around. We're not going to add any buffer, but it won't be disturbed. The county determined that pond was buffered.
Okay.
But this parcel does not go into that 50-foot buffer.
That's right.
Right.
We've kept our property lines 50 foot upstream from the approximate.
Okay.
Now, I'm sure we will get, well, we'll wait and see if that question happens. Any other questions? Thank you, sir. Anyone else like to be heard on behalf of Helen Stevenson Tract? All right, anyone in opposition to or any questions as it relates to Helen Stevenson Tract? Yes, sir, give us your name and address, please.
Good evening. I think it's still evening. Stephen Walker, Walker Kiger, PLLC 100 Professional Court in Garner, 4042 area. I represent Mr. Don Bird with Pleasant Grove Holdings LLC, who's a nearby landowner. This is the fifth time this application has been in front of y'all, right, in some variant or another. So this is the fifth go-round. And the difference this time is that the hog lagoon's been severed from the tract, but the last time I checked, the water doesn't care what the property line is. Water's going to flow where water's going to flow. It's like putting lipstick on a hog. Concerns are still the same, and I think if you look at the LLCs, the members, same people, new name. I got a lot of questions, and I'll list off these questions, and if somebody wants to answer them, then that's good. I don't think the hog waste lagoon's ever been properly decommissioned. I'd like to know if it is. As far as I know, there's an active DEQ investigation on the property along with notices of violations on not just the property that has the hog lagoon on it, but the whole farm that was there has an active DEQ investigation and also has notices of violation. 12 lots don't perk. The North Carolina Health Hazards Control Unit's investigating the demolition of barns that were done improperly without permits. Has that investigation even been completed? We don't know yet. Has the well abandonment been inspected by the county yet? That's another question, because there were wells that were abandoned without a well abandonment permit on this property. Does the moving of dirt, using a heavy equipment, demolition of barns, and the abandonment of wells trigger the erosion and sediment control ordinance? Because if it does, it's not being followed. Has an erosion buffer been established? Has the applicant complied with the erosion and sediment control ordinance? And then we have the whole thing about, well, we're just going to split it into two parcels, and then we don't have to worry about how much hog lagoon waste we've got spilling in to the creek. I wonder if their civil engineer has experience with working with DEQ on sites that have active hog lagoons on them with outstanding notices of violation. I'm wondering, with their hog lagoon expert, if they've taken water samples, if they've ever been employed or contracted by DEQ, or if they're aware that the notices of violation likely affects more of the property than just the hog lagoon, whether they've had communication with DEQ about the investigation, whether they're aware of the outstanding notices of violations that were never closed out, that have been pending for a long time on this property. And I also wonder what makes them certain that their testing relinquishes the developer from responsibility from properly decommissioning the hog lagoon or removing the nitrates from the soil. And should the planning board consider your work to be comprehensive and that you can rely on the work that the hog lagoon expert submitted to encompass all of DEQ's investigations and required action items, DEQ being the Department of Environmental Quality. And I'm also curious as to what the planning department or this board may have had in discussions with DEQ. I'm not going to repeat all the information contained. If you go back to the May agenda, you can find Brian Bryce wrote a letter to the board, submitted that letter, and you can go back and you can read it, and there's a whole lot of stuff in there. And I know you wanted to leave it to 5 minutes, and I'm trying to be as respectful of time as I can. But I would refer you to that letter. I noted that 12 of the 30, I believe it's 31 lots now, so it may be 11, lots do not appear to perk, so you're going to have an issue with that. If you're not having perk, you're going to have possibly more runoff. You've got these barns that have been demolished and didn't have a permit to do that. You have wells that have been abandoned that didn't have a permit to do that. You've got an active DEQ investigation, and we want to put 32 lots on a property that is under current investigation by the state's Department of Environmental Quality. We've got a hog waste lagoon that has not been properly decommissioned, presents a threat to the Blue Line tributary, and it's within the 100-year floodplain. It wouldn't be prudent to approve this subdivision application prior to the completion of DEQ's investigation. And as far as I know, that investigation is ongoing. We have a public records request in with DEQ asking them for updates of when their investigation is complete. They also proceeded with construction. They've been using heavy equipment. There's holes being dug, wells being abandoned, barns being demolished. And again, do we have an erosion buffer? And I believe the board also received an email from Samantha that's with the water keepers, and she still has the same concerns that she had before. She wasn't able to be here today. And then also I want you, I'll relinquish the remainder of my time, which I'm sure is not much, but Mr. Gino Kennedy is here, and I would consider him an expert in hog lagoons and decommissioning. And if you'll hear from him, unless there's any questions for me, I'd love for you to hear from him.
I guess what I'm just curious about, we talked before this meeting, and I'm sure you understand the concept of standing. I'm trying to understand how Mr. Byrd has standing in this matter. How's he directly impacted by this?
He's directly impacted because his LLC owns property that's on the same tributary and the creek where the water would be running off into through the hog lagoon, and in the event of a flood, would be running in and impacting his property.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, who else like to be heard as it relates to Helen Stevenson tract? Yes, sir.
Hi, I'm Gino Kennedy. I'm with my firm, Agreement Services. We handle these permits, handle hog farms every day. We decommission farms on a regular basis. Just today alone, I'm decommissioning 2 lagoons right now as we talk, and I had to have DEQ out there today to view the bottom of it and verify the depth of the material in the lagoon, verify my samples, verify my application records, and verify that I could sign off on a closure lagoon after they do their review. Like I said before, if you don't like a family member, deed them the hog lagoon, because it is problematic because of how we have regulated hog farms in the state of North Carolina. It is no joke. You don't want one of these. Now, they can be properly taken off, but they got to follow guidelines. If they don't, then you're setting yourself up for problems. That is why you want to deed it to the person you like the least. So that's, if you have any questions about that process, or if you want to see that process in any way, you may be able to see some videos on websites of mine and things of that nature. But I was with DEQ today, Washington Regional Office. They come out, they said, Gino, we agree with you on the first lagoon that you can close it in and cave it in, but the bottom one we need to investigate a little further. So I had to accommodate. And I got the clearance on that one too. So we'll be taking that one off the books, and as soon as they get the closure forms, the developer that I'm working for can do his thing. The tract I'm on right now is 275 acres. It's in the middle of rural Jones County. And until I deal with this, there's nothing going down.
Any questions of the gentleman? Thanks, sir.
Thank you.
Anyone else like to be heard as it relates to Helen Stevenson track? All right, bring back staff. Sure. Go ahead. No, go. You guys, anytime.
I actually have a question for our Madam Attorney. What is our responsibility in terms of reviewing this application as it has come in today? My question being, we know there's a hog lagoon on the piece of property that has now been sectioned off. If we had just received it like this the first time, we wouldn't have known about the hog lagoon unless somebody would have informed us of it on the adjoining piece. So I don't know what our responsibility is legally in order to review what's before us.
So I think the issue is stormwater impact.
Okay.
And how the stormwater impact from this particular development comes into play with downstream properties. So I think that would be the issue that you would be reviewing.
So I have one more question. We do know that there were violations on the entirety of the property.
So do we take that into
Do we
consideration?
take that into consideration, even though only half the property has come in and the violation was on the hog lagoon? I mean, he was saying it's encompassing the whole property, but legally I don't know how that works. So when we look at this, do we say there are outstanding violations on this submittal or not?
I don't know the answer to that because I don't have a copy of all of the DEQ paperwork. Typically, at least the way Johnston County does it, the violation attaches to the unit, the property unit. If there's a subdivision of that property, that doesn't necessarily make the problem go away. It really depends, and that's a factual finding that you'll have to make based on the testimony that you receive with regards to this particular project.
Thank you.
I got a question for Mr.
I'm done.
Okay, I got a question for Mr. Bagley, if you don't mind. Carlos, does the subdivision as designed and presented to us meet all of the Johnston County codes and ordinances for stormwater runoff attenuation?
I believe it will. We'll have to go through permitting and get stormwater approval and erosion control approval.
Okay. But in terms of intensity and, discharge and points of discharge, you believe that it'll
Yeah,
be able to get stormwater?
we're proposing 15% impervious.
Thanks, sir.
My concerns like yours is if it was just this part we got a year ago, it'd be different than versus the whole property. And what do you, like I said, what the council has said, what is Johnston County, plan of action as well of having an open investigation attached to a property, but that property is now no longer part of the application. So.
But she was saying
They were all
part and
together.
parcel all together.
Right.
It's just difficult.
I think my
Yes.
interpretation of what you were saying, you can correct me if I'm wrong, was that we have to consider this we can consider the downstream impacts of runoff from this subdivision. But I think we've also heard testimony that this subdivision as designed, at the point that it's at in the approval process, meets all the codes and ordinances. And there are steps to go. And engineer is confident that it will meet those too. If the property owner with the potential hog lagoon will be responsible for dealing with any impacts relative to that hog lagoon. We'll go ahead and bring it back to staff just to check that box, and then we can continue this.
Quick question.
Yeah, go ahead.
And I'm new to this.
Ask away.
This one, but I know they split the property, and now the property that is the southern portion, looks like it's gonna be landlocked.
There is an easement, I believe.
Or is there an easement to
They
it?
created an easement.
Yeah, the way that it, if I may.
Yeah, go ahead.
And it's hard to tell, there is a spur that cuts off, and you can see here on GIS, the southern property, there is a spur that heads up to the road, so there is access to the southern lot that has been cut off.
And where I was going with that is, this parcel ever does get developed, and they meet all the criteria of Hog Lagoon, is they're gonna serve off the easement, they're not gonna serve from what their original plan was, I guess, to serve this whole tract.
It was.
And it's, that area on the parcel that's just been subdivided is pretty much all wetland.
Yeah.
So there's really not much development potential for that.
Okay, that's correct. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks, sir.
Staff recommendations, preliminary approval subject to the conditions and requirements in the staff report.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, ma'am.
The part that they have sectioned off into the new one, the new LLC is going to be responsible for that. Continue to be responsible for that, correct?
I have a question for, on lots, well, this might be a question for Carlos. For lots 5 and 6, is there going to be any signage or anything like that for, to let those lots know that, for not to be in the pond or anything like that? Or just because of their property line, they should know not to go into the, I'm just thinking also safety concerns. If anybody in the subdivision were to try to get in the pond, but then also if there is a hog lagoon further in it and people like to wander, I was trying to think of also public safety
Yeah.
as well.
I mean, we can post no trespassing signs down there.
I want to ask Carly something related to that. Do you think that the developer would be willing, going down lot 5, 6, and that little piece of lot 7, to at least put up some sort of fencing or barrier or something? Just like she's saying, to give the, I mean, honestly, if it's people, if it's adults, they should know to not be going out to some kind of yucky-looking pond.
Right.
But if it's children, adults should be looking after their children, but we all know this just doesn't happen all the time. Not the children, the adults. But is he willing to put something up there, something to make it more prevalent? That, you know, guys, this is your property line. You don't need to be going back here.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
I think he'd be, I think he'd be open to that. But sometimes when you put a fence up or a sign up, says, do not come in, that
It's
makes
more
it want to come
inviting.
in.
Yeah.
It makes
So-
it more inviting.
Challenge.
Climb the
It's a
fence
challenge.
or go around the end.
I know.
Yeah, I understand that too.
I do want to be on record to say, I believe we're meeting all the codes. We'll go through the permit process of DOT, stormwater erosion control. And I would like to say there's been no other opposition to this.
All right, I have one more question for council. And I'm sorry if I'm still not completely understanding, so this is why you're here, to guide us. We have seen this several times, and we've heard several different ideas and issues and considerations. One of which at one time was consideration of including a condition of approval that decommissioning of the abandoned hog farm has been met and is signed off on by DEQ. My question is, could we still do that if we so choose on this or not? Because I'm still not real clear on the violations and closing of the hog lagoon and how, or is that not able to be considered for what we have before us?
The alleged hog lagoon is not located on this parcel.
Right.
And so I think that that requirement would not be possible because, and I don't know, and you know, we've heard that there might be common ownership, that sort of thing. I've not done, obviously, the title work to see who owns what and all of those sorts of things, but I don't think that we could put as a condition of approval on this parcel an obligation of somebody else.
Okay. That's what I needed to hear. So with that in mind and with all the discussion that we've had, in the past, that would have been something that I would have been in favor of doing. However, with how it sits before us tonight, with that being removed from what we're seeing, with what we're seeing meeting all of the requirements, I make a motion to approve.
All right, motion to approve by Ms. Hackler.
I'll second.
Second by Ms. Howard. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Sorry, I got one opposed. Okay, one opposed there. All right, Helen Stevenson tract is approved. Great.
I'm good.
Okay, all right. Bay Valley Road tract.
Bay Valley Road Tract, owner and developer Steel Bridge Crossing LLC, surveyors Fleet Temple Engineering. Its location's 1474 Bay Valley Road at Tedder Road in Beulah Township. It's served by the Beulah Fire Department and North Johnston Rescue. It's 55.5 acres, 52 lots proposed, Johnston County Public Water, individual septic, traffic counts not available. This portion of Bay Valley Road does not appear on the comprehensive transportation plan as needing improvement. This parcel is not within the environmentally sensitive area. However, a floodplain appears on a small portion of the parcel. A reverse landscape buffer will be required along Bay Valley Road.
Any questions of staff? Thank you, sir. Who'd like to be heard on behalf of the Bay Valley Road tract?
Hello, I'm Fleet Temple, 5245 Red Hill Church Road, Coates, North Carolina. I'm the engineer designer for what you're looking at here, and just here to answer questions as usual. We'll submit for all local and state agency approvals, stormwater, erosion control, DOT permits, and everything involved. Mainly here to answer any questions. If you have it.
Okay. Was this subdivision developed based on a preliminary soil survey?
Yes, sir. Yes, it was. I think it was done by Brown Environmental. I don't have it noted on here, but it was based on that. We do not have wetlands delineated yet, but I'm pretty sure. Obviously, there'll be some wetlands down on the north end where the flood area is in the back of those lots, possibly. Other than and I've sort of accounted for that to keep the lots, out of that steep drop off on the north side.
which would be the left side of what you're looking at. And we're showing a 50-foot riparian buffer going up off of the stream center line, which will not be disturbed. So yes, in answer to your question, yes, it is based off of the soils, preliminary soils map.
Any other questions of the gentleman? Thanks, sir.
All right, thank you.
Anyone else like to be heard as it relates to the Bay Valley Road tract? All right, bring it back to staff.
Staff recommendations, preliminary approval, subject to the conditions and requirements in the staff report.
Everything looks to be in order on this to me. All the minimum requirements are met. Everything's clearly noted on the plans. With that, I make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Motion approved by Ms. Hackler, second by Mr. Moore. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, Bay Valley Road tract is approved. Cuttington to Denning tract.
Mr. Chairman, I want to recuse myself.
Thank you, sir.
I didn't see the mail kiosk on this one. On the last one.
Cuttington to Denning tract, September 2022 submittal. Owner Wayne Cuttington and Tracy Denning. Owner or developer is Stillbridge Crossing. Surveyor Freedom Firm. It's on NC Highway 50 north of Tar Hill Road in the Elevation Township, served by Elevation Fire and Benson Rescue. It's 74.59 acres, 66 lots proposed. Johnston County Public Water, individual septic. Traffic count was 4,600 vehicles per day in 2019 on NC 50. This portion of NC Highway 50 appears on the comprehensive transportation plan as an existing major thoroughfare with adequate design capacity. Reverse landscape buffer required for lots backing up to Tar Hill Road and NC Highway 50. And per NCDOT, a left turn lane will be required. Cuttington 2 was originally improved in January 2022 for 25 lots, which is the part you will see on your map to the
top.
Yeah, it's on the top part of your map. I don't know if that's, I can't find north on it right now. So it's at the top, or on the right side, actually, of your map. And then there's 41 new lots proposed. This was before you a couple of months ago with a little bit different design, which I'll allow the applicant to explain.
How is it different from last time?
Yeah.
I'll let the applicant, there was some concerns about
The
off-site
traffic.
traffic.
I know, so we were concerned about traffic.
An emergency.
Emergency.
Any questions, Mr. Chairman?
I think we're getting it figured out. We're good. Thank you, sir. We'd like to be heard on behalf of Cuttington to Denning tract.
Good evening again, ladies and gentlemen. Marcus Burrell, Hewitt Law Group, 101 Blackstone Lane in Selma. As Mr. Marr said, this is a kind of a phase 2 almost approval. The first 25 lots were approved back in January, so this is the southern portion of this. The changes that have been made, if you look in the southwestern corner of this, you'll see a circle. One of the things that was proposed before was maybe a roundabout at this intersection if DOT ever does that. This circle takes into account a 200-foot roundabout. So there would be room that is being retained by the developer, not sectioned off as a lot, to give this room for a roundabout if that is ever desired. Also on the southern portions between lots 39 and 40, there is a gap for emergency access, gated with a lockbox that emergency services would have the keys to be able to access that bottom portion of the subdivision instead of having to come in the main entrance and get all the way to the back. So for quicker access. It's not an access point for residents of the subdivision. It is only for emergency services in the case of an emergency. So those are the changes that have been made from where it was before you before. I also have Mr. Bagley here again, if you have questions regarding the development of that. But those are the changes that have been made.
I would like to say it's nice that you heard our concerns and you came back with something that looks a little different and taking those into consideration. So we do appreciate that.
Thank you.
So.
Thanks, sir. Who else like to be heard on behalf of Carlos? You. Okay. You were inching forward there like you want to say something.
Just used to it, I guess. Carlos Bagley, 63 Watkins Road, Clayton, North Carolina. Like I said, 25 lots approved preliminary. We're going to approve the south side, 30,000 square foot lots. Mail kiosks between 1 and 2. I do believe, we had some conversation about a quote roundabout from an adjacent property owner there. DOT's only requested widening with a left turn lane so far. The roundabout sounds like a good thing, but I'm not DOT, and I don't think they're DOT. So I took 200 feet looking at a roundabout in Bowie's Creek and Newton Grove. I've designed a roundabout before, but not in DOT right away. It's been in shopping centers. So we're willing to accommodate that, but again, we don't know what the future holds for DOT in this intersection and that. So I can answer any questions.
Carlos, on the 30-foot emergency access, is that a gravel or is it hard paved, or do you know?
Yeah, they didn't want a full access, but a gravel access with a chain and a Knox box for fire. I put the dimension from that intersection was 1,190 feet. Our entrance is to the north, 1,190 feet from, you can kind of see that dimension.
Yeah, I see it.
Just to give a.
Thanks, sir. Anyone else like to be heard as it relates to Cuttington to Denning Track? Yes, sir.
My name is Kyle Honeycutt at 46 Denning Road, Benson, North Carolina. I am one of the adjacent property owners, and first I'd like to say I appreciate the developer taking into consideration my concern about the intersection and trying to make accommodations to handle that. It is true, I am not, nor do I profess to be any sort of traffic expert or traffic engineer, nor have I ever been involved in the design of a roundabout. It just seemed like it was the appropriate thing for this intersection. There would be 5 roads coming in together in a roundabout if it was built. They've definitely taken into account the 4 points, 2 of them from Highway 50, 1 from Tar Heel Road, 1 from Denning Road. The one that doesn't seem to be taken into account is Pleasant Hill Church Road, but I don't know if that's so close that it couldn't even be factored into it or not, but just pointing out it's not factored into that. That might be one that takes up more on my side of the road than on his side anyway. But that's the only thing that I wanted to mention, was that it just doesn't include that, but I do appreciate him taking into consideration this. It is a weird intersection. I'm not wedded to a traffic circle. Anything that they put up out there that fixes the traffic problem, I'm supportive of, but neither he nor I or any of the other property owners have any idea what that is coming forward. But I do appreciate it taking into consideration of not locking us in, or ruling out one potential solution. I did speak last time about the emergency access. My only question is, well, why does it have to just be restricted to only emergency vehicles? Why can't that just be a second point of ingress and egress for the subdivision? If I were to purchase a house in this subdivision of this size, I'd want to have a second way in and out. But that's just an opinion on. That's just my opinion.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else like to be heard as it relates to Cuttington to Denning Track? All right, back to staff.
Staff recommendations, preliminary approval subject to the conditions and requirements in staff report.
Motion to approve by Mr. Little, second by Ms. Hackler. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right. Cuttington 2 Den check is approved. 4Cs of Johnson County.
4Cs of Johnston County, owner John Hampton Lee II, developer 4Cs of Johnston County LLC, surveyors Fleet Temple Engineering. This location is 9383 Raleigh Road, northwest of Grace Road in the Elevation Township. It's served by Elevation Fire District and 5210 Rescue Squad. It's 106.2 acres, 69 lots proposed, Johnston County Public Water, individual septic. Traffic count was 4,800 vehicles per day in 2019. This portion of Raleigh Road appears on the Comprehensive Transportation Plan as an existing minor thoroughfare with adequate design capacity. This parcel is not within the environmentally sensitive area. However, a floodplain appears on a portion of the parcel.
Any questions of staff? Thank you, sir. Who'd like to be heard on behalf of 4Cs of Johnson County?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Tillman Pope. I'm an attorney in Dunn, 403 West Broad Street. I represent the applicant, 4Cs of Johnston County. As staff has indicated, and you've had a very busy evening, so I'm going to be as brief as I can. 69 lot proposed subdivision. Fleet Temple is the engineer. He is here. We'll call him up in just a moment to answer your questions. I'll try to anticipate some of those. If you're looking at the preliminary plat, you'll see some shaded areas in gray. Those are not proposed to be a part of the subdivision. The plan is that those are going to be sold to adjacent property owners, which will provide them some additional buffer from the proposed subdivision. So that is not a part of the plan. All of the surrounding area is vacant agricultural, with the exception of 2 homes up closer to the road. You'll see a subdivision to the east, but you'll see that there is more than sufficient buffer there with the blue line stream in the back of those lots. We've reviewed the TRC's comments, do not have any objections to any of them. Most of them are development issues, stormwater permits and DOT driveway permits and things of that nature. So with that, in the interest of your time, I'll call forward Mr. Temple, and I'll let him answer any questions that you might have.
Thanks, sir.
I'm here to answer questions. Fleet Temple, 5245 Red Hill Church Road.
I didn't know if you had a speech you wanted to
No, sir. Standard, we're going to meet, submit for all the state and local, county, state permits, driveway permits. The soils have been looked at. Wetlands have been delineated on this site, and we've, tried to keep plenty of usable area on the front portion of the lots. The mail kiosk is, on this one, I think the mail kiosk is right.
That's what I was looking for.
It's on a separate, it's on a separate lot, right behind, it's not on lot 69, but directly behind lot 69.
So you just have the one for all 60?
It's a small, it's not our standard sort of bump out.
Okay.
I just had some usable area there, so I had sort of a full pull out.
Okay.
With 2 or 3 parking spaces, 1 handicap space, and a small sidewalk on it with the kiosk on the back side of the sidewalk.
Questions of the gentleman? Thanks, sir.
All right, thank you.
Anyone else like to be heard as it relates to 4Cs of Johnson County? Just in time, Mr. Moore.
Staff recommendations, preliminary approval subject to the conditions and requirements in staff report.
I would just like to say again, school capacity numbers, even though they're not at capacity yet, they are inching very close with the enrollment versus the capacity. So I know that's something we cannot take into consideration. However, I just wanted to point that out, since this is a larger subdivision, those schools are nearing being capped out.
I make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Motion approved by Ms. Byrd, second by Mr. Moore. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Four Cs, Jefferson County is approved. All right, we're going to take a 10-minute break. Mr. Moore, Shallow Woods.
Yes, sir. Shallow Woods, owner and developer of Profile Construction Incorporated, surveyor Fleet Temple Engineering. It's 1550 Crantock Road in the Smithfield Township. It's served by the Wilson's Mills Fire and Rescue. It's 88.3 acres, 72 lot proposed Johnston County Public Water, individual septic. Traffic count in 2019 was 1,400 vehicles per day. This portion of Crantock Road does not appear on the comprehensive transportation plan as needing improvement.
Thanks, sir. Who'd like to be heard on behalf of Shallow Woods? Give us just a moment, apparently.
Fleet Temple Engineering, 5245 Red Hill Church Road. Here to answer any questions as usual. Let's see what jumps out at me here. Mail kiosk is located, looks like, I can't quite see, lots 87 and 88, no, 67 and 68 on the right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6 lots in on the right of the entry drive. We've had wetlands delineated. It is based on a preliminary soils map. We have one wetlands crossing that will be permitted with the state DWQ. Once we get the design done to see how wide, if we need to go outside of the right-of-way for additional fill slopes or anything like that. Riparian buffers are shown on the streams going sort of through the middle of the property and then back on the north side, which would be on the plan right side. Stormwater, all permits, local government, state will be applied for. Maximum 15% impervious per the stormwater ordinance. 30,000 square foot lot minimum on septic. And here to answer any questions.
Any questions of the gentleman?
Do you have any idea what the voluntary agricultural district is that abuts this property? What is there?
I'm making sure, I didn't see it on the
I
map.
didn't see the note either.
Oh.
So if you did not include the VAD note in your plats, you need to do so.
Okay, it's, the note is on page 2.
I may have missed it.
Page 2, about the middle bottom, right above the DOT, the DOT note, middle column, almost at the bottom.
I don't see it.
I don't see anything.
Yeah, he's got it, it's the last page of the big one.
Oh, the last page.
Oh, I'm
In the
sorry,
center.
page 4, this one has 14.
Okay, and I'm sorry, tell me where it is again?
In the center column,
Okay.
the smaller font, above the DOT.
There it is.
Above the DOT stamp.
Yeah, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha.
Do you happen to know what that VAD is?
I
Oh,
do
looks-
not off the top of my head, no ma'am.
I don't see any hog houses, so that's always good. It looked like Red Crop on GIS.
Okay.
Woods, a lot of woods.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions of the gentleman?
Are there any plans to take any of the open spaces you have delineated here into like community pavilions or a playground or anything?
There are no plans. We just have it noted as open space. We will add access easements going back to it. I'm not showing those on there, down a property line.
That was my question, if it was just gonna be left alone or anything like that.
Right, it won't, as far as we have planned, no amenities.
Nothing?
Okay.
Okay.
Right, just open land.
Okay.
As is.
Would it be a HOA here?
There will be an HOA, yes.
Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you.
Anyone else like to be heard as it relates to shallow woods? All right, bring it back to staff. Oh, I'm sorry, we got one right there behind you. Yes, sir, give us your name and address, please.
Danny Langston, 843 Dickinson Road. I have the adjacent property that backs up to this, and it is agricultural. And it's also being put on a conservation easement as we're going through the process now. My concern is the same now as it was when we talked about the Crantop subdivision coming up. That road floods at both ends at Crantop plus there at Steve Hargis. You're talking about putting 76 more houses on top of where you've already approved 276 homes. Schools are capped. You're running into rescue, fire issues. And if we have a hurricane, which I hope we don't, those people are going to sit in there for a while. So my concern is, growth is inevitable, but let's do smart planned growth, and I think this is not a smart planned growth deal. I really don't, not when we've already got. And I live on Dickinson Road. If I leave the house 10 minutes to 7, I'm making a right-hand turn on Cleveland Road to go to Smithfield. I'm okay. If it's after 7, I sit there 15, 20 minutes. If I'm waiting, if there's a car in front of me that's coming from Crantop and all cutting through to go to 40, if they're making a left-hand turn, I can sit there 30 minutes. So let's consider all this when we're just building houses. Thank you.
Thanks, sir. Anyone else like to be heard as it relates to shallow woods? All right, Mr. Moore.
Staff recommendations, preliminary approval subject to conditions and requirements in the staff report.
I did also I had written down also what Mr. Langston had also said, that we had just approved, the major subdivision right down the road as well, of having all of that as well, and the emergency services and the schools.
The high school is already 50% over capacity.
Yeah.
And that's 4 times as many homes in the subdivision we just approved right up the street
Right.
as this one.
Right. So like I said, I just did want to make a note as well on record for that as well. However, I do appreciate that there being open space in this subdivision.
Entertain a motion.
As a board, we've said over and over about the growth, and hopefully the new land use will address that. But looking at this subdivision, it meets all the ordinances. So I make a motion to approve it.
Second.
All right, motion to approve by Ms. Byrd, second by Mr. Hudson. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, Shallow Woods is approved. Grabtown Road subdivision.
Grabtown Road subdivision, September 2022 submittal. Owner and developers RRT Development LLC. Surveyor Stocks Engineering. Location is Grabtown Road just south of Bayberry Lane in the Boone Hill Township. It's served by the Brogdon Fire District and Smithfield Rescue Squad. It's 79.07 acres, 78 lots proposed. Johnston County Public Water, individual septic. Traffic count is 400 vehicles per day, and that was in 2020. This portion of Grabtown Road does not appear on the comprehensive transportation plan as needing improvement.
Any questions of staff? All right, who'd like to be heard on behalf of Grabtown Road?
Good evening. My name is Joe Howell. I'm practice law in Wendell. I'm at 200 North Pine Street in Wendell, and I represent RRT Development LLC. I think the staff has indicated that this application's been submitted and it is complete. I think it meets every requirement. I too am going to try to be respectful of your time. However, I do think that it's appropriate because there were some concerns raised the last time this came up about some issues, and so I will tender to you Mike Stocks, who is here from Stocks Engineering, who could talk to you about the development in general, and also, but specifically, I'd like to call Kevin Varnell in just a moment and let you ask him a few questions, walk through these concerns that you had, and I think you'll be have reached an understanding that we've met or exceeded all of the ordinance requirements. I am prepared to call Mr. Varnell now, and it's at your pleasure, Mr. Chairman.
That sounds good to us. Thank you.
Okay. Kevin Varnell, please. And for your convenience, I have just some packages so you don't have to thumb through a bunch of stuff.
Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
While he's handing those out, if you don't mind, I'll go ahead and jump into it and
Yes, sir.
and start my talk and speed this thing up. Kevin Varnell with Stocks Engineering. Our address is 801 East Washington Street, Nashville, North Carolina. Again, this is a 78-lot subdivision you guys have seen before. Right now, we're proposing 10.92 acres of impervious, which works out to roughly 13.8%. So I'm going to talk real quickly about stormwater. I think that was one of the big concerns last time. So I'll go through that really, really quickly, and I'll be happy to answer any questions or follow up with a lot more detail if you want it. But ultimately, for stormwater requirements, we're referring to the Land Development Code, Article 7, Section 14, 383, which really gives two options to meet the stormwater requirements. One is to be less than 15% impervious, which I just told you we were at 13.8%. So we meet the ordinance requirement there for stormwater. And then also, one other option is to have less than 10% of runoff from the site, increase in runoff. And we also meet that with this development as well, based on how the development's laid out, the way it's being constructed and things like that. So I'll be happy to go into a lot more information if you want to about stormwater, but currently we meet the requirements both ways on the stormwater side. So obviously the other permits will come forward as we go through the project. This is just a preliminary part of it, but we did want to point out we have gone ahead and run a lot of calculations to try to show kind of where we are in that process. So do you have any questions relating to stormwater or the site plan specifically that I can answer for you?
Let me address some specific issues that came up. There was a concern about the pond that was not shown on the plat. That has now been placed on there.
So I see that's on there now.
Yes. So there was one larger pond and one small pond that was kind of hidden in the woods. Is over on the left-hand side at the back of that middle cul-de-sac that we now show as an old farm irrigation pond.
Okay.
And in fact, y'all came in and added additional buffer because of some concerns that were raised.
Correct. So there are several streams on the property, either in the middle of the property and then on the boundaries of the property. So what we've done, because of some of the concerns that were raised, we added additional buffers where possible. So we've gone as high as 25 feet on some of them. And then even the lot that's in the middle that we kind of surround, we've also added additional landscape buffer there as well.
If you want to look at tab 3,
there's some highlighted areas in yellow that will show you the additional buffers above and beyond what's required that we have agreed to add.
I see that.
So that buffer around the center parcel that you surround here.
Yes.
Did you just say that's going to be a landscape buffer?
That will be a landscape buffer.
Okay, thanks, sir. And the buffers around the streams are just additional?
There'll be additional buffers that we'll provide. Some of them are already vegetated, so they'll stay that way.
and the buffers that are shown, those color buffers are in addition to the buffer that was previously proposed, is that right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Right. Bear with me.
But there is still there's still a pretty big sizable pond though, or not? Well,
There is. There's an existing pond, the one where his hand is on, right there in the top right.
right,
That will stay. That is a buffered pond. So
Okay.
that will stay, and we show the 50-foot buffer around it
right.
as well.
Is that going to be managed by the HOA
It will
or
not be. It will
part
be
of those?
Owned by those individual
Individual.
property owners,
Okay,
but it will not be a part of the HOA.
okay.
There was a question about nitrogen calculation.
Yeah, so nitrogen, I guess, is another part of the stormwater process that will come through later on. But I've also run nitrogen calculations, I think they're in your packet as well.
Yeah, they are.
That show that we're less than the required 3.6 pounds per acre per year, which is the state requirement for nitrogen runoff. And real quickly, I can tell you what that number was. It comes up to 2.88 pounds per acre per year, where the state's threshold was 3.6. So well below that requirement.
How far are you from the News watershed?
Roughly, well, we're in the News watershed, but from the News River, we're about a mile.
In fact, the concern about the impact on the watershed, how do you address that?
So as far as, impact to the watershed, we're obviously part of that watershed. We're a right good ways away from the News River, but we're meeting the state requirements for nutrient runoff, which is the biggest concern. And not only are we meeting it, but we're also well under that. Again, with the runoff from the site, we're meeting the requirements for the Johnston County UDO, but both ways. One, by being less than 15%, and then two, by having less than 10% increase in runoff. So we meet both of those requirements, which will take care of any concerns that were brought up or we have about the News River.
Are you confident as designed the property will meet or exceed the requirements necessary to receive approval of a stormwater management permit?
Yes.
And how about erosion control requirements?
Right now, we have not designed the erosion control, but the plan as designed, when it's done, will meet the erosion control requirements and will be reviewed and approved by Johnston County, and they'll issue a permit for that.
And as far as traffic requirements?
Same thing with DOT. So ultimately, we'll have to go through design with DOT, address it with driveway permits. They'll review that and approve, and we feel confident we'll get those as well.
And then the power line that was across,
The power line across the front of the property. So Duke Energy will be relocating that power when the interior power
Okay.
line's done. If we
Okay.
want to or need to.
Okay.
Ultimately, they'd like to bring that to the right of way, but we'll kind of work through Duke Energy with that to see
Okay.
what works for them.
okay.
Any additional questions, Mr. Barnett?
And I think if I'm reading this correctly, and I just want to make sure that I am, at the 2 points of analysis that you have showed in your stormwater calculations, one being at the bottom of that pond and the other one being on the, I guess, far western corner of the property, you're actually showing a decrease in every storm event of runoff.
That's correct.
Post-development.
That's right.
Thanks, sir.
Yes,
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Anyone else like to be heard as it relates to Grabtown Road subdivision? Yes.
Good evening.
Good evening, sir.
Many of your faces look very familiar to me. I don't know how the other way it works. I wanted to make a few comments.
Give us your name and address.
Oh.
Might as well get it again.
Melvin Oliver, Jr., 6729 Brogden Road,
Thanks,
still
sir.
NC. Sorry, Mr. Whitlow.
Good to see you again.
Okay. Well, that depends. But anyway, one of the comments that I wanted to make about this subdivision and a lot of the problems that have grown out of this subdivision that's brought us 2 or 3 times before the board is the buyer and the seller on this property did not engage in due diligence in the transaction involving the property which the subdivision is located. Now, the reason I say that is I was informed by my former lawyer that RRT was not aware of the cart weight statute of the property purchase. A due diligence, of course, I think you know what the meaning of that is. I would hope, anyway, in your capacity. And what initially happened was all access to our farm was basically cut off by the subdivision. Particularly because I realized, with a little observation, that the lines that for the lots that adjoin the cartway path actually include portions of the cartway path. So that is a concern. One of the things that I would like RRT to disclose to all lots bordering the cartway path the status of the cartway. This is requested due to a number of their lots infringing on that cartway. The cartway is legal and must be kept open. This is for future generations. Whatever comes, whatever goes. The cartway path is the cartway path. The land adjacent and home, the land is also adjacent and home to a hunt club, which has utilized that land for nearly 20 years. Guns will be fired on the property and hunting will take place. I've already informed you of the dangers from the wild boars that inhabit all of the land around that subdivision. Y'all don't seem to be too concerned about that, but in talking with hunters, it's a real problem. So this information should be, RRT should disclose this information to any property buyers in that subdivision and residents who purchase a house in that subdivision. It's important, I believe, and reasonable. RRT altered their subdivision plan to access our property when requested by the board at our request. This access will provide the movement of agricultural and industrial equipment through their subdivision and hunt club traffic. Not ideal under most any circumstances, I would think, for a neighborhood, Ms. Davis. This could result in damages to property along the street and injury to subdivision residents. The information must be disclosed to buyers of lots and residents on those streets. Signs will be erected at the end of that street to warn them about the entrance to our farm. The new access divides our farm in half. A new road will have to be constructed to access the entirety of the farmland. That will entail the cost of construction. Sorry, my glasses don't want to cooperate. I'm also taking water pills. You got me all messed up here. This will entail the cost of construction of a road not as a result of any action we have taken as property owners on that property. In other words, I will be required to spend considerable amount of money to establish the road through the farm from the subdivision road. A quite reasonable request is that RRT must bear the cost of road construction across the farmland. And I tie this to the lack of their due diligence in examining the property adequately and the imposition that it has put on not only our farm, but an adjacent farm. Well, I do oppose the destruction of carbon-absorbing, oxygen-producing forest and elimination of farmland. Ms. Davis, I got you twice. The request to the board is quite reasonable. I can't read with them, I can't read without them. The request to the board for these items, under any circumstances, should be quite reasonable to impose on RRT and the potential residents of that subdivision. And that's basically putting RRT responsible for problems that they are creating in the establishment of that subdivision. Thank you very much, and I didn't take an hour and a half.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
I'm sure you do.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, members of the board. My name is Brady Herman. I'm a municipal land use attorney with the Bro Law Firm out of the Raleigh office, 2012 Fondale Drive. I gave staff a copy of a PowerPoint presentation I'm going to go and be presenting. I represent the Whitleys, who are the property owners, specifically Jay and Jan Whitley, whose 4-acre parcel flag lot is literally smack dab in the middle of the subdivision. So I'll try to go and be brief with my presentation, but I'm going to sort of use their time throughout my PowerPoint, and I'm going to have Ms. Whitley go and testify as well.
I'm Jan Whitley, 6079 Garden Road, Smithfield.
Thank you, ma'am.
If y'all wouldn't mind going to the next slide. So as you can go and see here, this is the flag lot that has now been created, surrounded by approximately 18 lots of the 78 lot subdivision. And as you can see here in yellow, there's a 4-acre parcel with an approximately 820-foot road that extends all the way down to Grabtown Road, and it's approximately 30 feet wide. And currently, Ms. Whitley's daughter and her family reside on the property. And again, it's pretty obvious of why the Whitleys are vehemently opposed to this subdivision, because it is essentially engulfing their property around their lot. So if you wouldn't mind going to the next slide, I'm going to have Ms. Whitley go and briefly explain a little bit more regarding the history of the property, as well as the cart path that Mr. Oliver was just referring to.
Well, we've had a long...
Comes to the microphone.
Oh, okay. We've had a long history, you know, in the Brogden area, and the we purchased the property back in June of 2012, and my family, my husband had been on that land fishing in the pond and going up the path all through his childhood and stuff. But there was the cart path where Mr. Oliver and the Daughtries, you know, we as neighbors and friends, I always allowed them, you know, access through the dry pathway, and then of course once they got to the house, it went out into the RRT now's property. But you know, we never had any issue on that, but the farm equipment never, you know, was through the yard. Now a lot of times, because there was fields, the tractors and all, they just went on the fields on the side. They really didn't use the path all the time because there was fields on both sides. But you know, it has been, you know, just like Mr. Oliver said, been accessed through that area, you know, all throughout the time on there.
I apologize, I probably jumped the gun while I was getting ready for that. I would also like to pass out just copies of my PowerPoint presentation, as well as applicable ordinances that I'll be referring to. to you all as well as opposing counsel. And at the appropriate time, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to go ahead and enter in my PowerPoint as well as the ordinances into the record.
Thanks, sir.
If you wouldn't mind going to the next slide, please. So, Ms. Whitley, did you take these pictures?
I did.
And could you explain a little bit of what we're seeing here?
Well, this one shows the pathway. Like you said, it's about 821 foot coming up from Grabtown Road up to the front of the house. And the house is not very far from the path. I don't have a picture of the house there, but it's not, the front of the house is not very far. And then the other side is in the, I count, the side where the house is on is section 1, and the cemetery side section 2, and then the other side I count is section 3, which is next to the Starlings, and that is the section where they've got the blind ditches, and there it shows some slopes on that. So that's just showing, and how that the 18 lots will be smothering the house. And I do appreciate the 25 foot. I don't not recognize the 25 foot, but that is pale in comparison. But I do recognize that they did that effort and the extra buffering, because we need that. But can you, the houses, 25 foot is not that much, and I did finally get to talk with one, and I offered to purchase some buffer. But anyway, that is the pictures right in front of the house. And the thing on that, when you think of 4 acres, it sounds like a lot, but the thing on this is the house is situated over there close to where this is going to be. So the more land, there's a little bit of land behind it, but the other open space is on the side toward Mr. Oliver's. So it's kind of deceiving when you think about 4 acres. So anyway.
Thank you, Ms. Whitley. And just one follow-up question. Do you all own this road in fee simple title, or is there any easements rights to anyone else to go on this road?
No, we own the road there.
Okay, thank you. If you wouldn't mind going to the next slide, I just want to briefly go through sort of a roadmap of why RRT's subdivision application should be denied. And the first reason is there's 3 violations of the subdivision ordinance in Article 3. One being the creation of a flagship lot of the Whitley's property, the other being residential driveways being less than 500 feet from one another, and as well as landlocking Mr. Oliver's property by essentially eliminating that access that Ms. Whitley and Mr. Oliver was describing regarding that cartway path. And also, there's a direct negative impact that this subdivision will have on the Brogden neighborhood and as well as the community as a whole, including stormwater issues. Grabtown Road is already a very dangerous road, and also an overburden and the lack thereof of county services in this area. If you wouldn't mind going to the next slide, please. So as to the first violation of Article 3 is Section 14-225. Now, as you can see here, this is the applicant's subdivision plat, and the 18 lots that essentially surround the Whitley's property creates a flagship lot within this development.
Well, let me stop right there and ask a question, if you don't mind. I guess I'm failing to understand how this subdivision creates a flag lot when this flag lot was created when it was platted.
That's fair enough, but the fact of the matter is this whole subdivision being around the Whitley's property creates a flag lot within the subdivision.
Is the lot not a flag? Well, this parcel is not within the subdivision.
Well, it's not, but the fact that the whole subdivision encompasses this, the spirit and purpose of intent of restricting or otherwise prohibiting flag lots within subdivisions goes to not having a 4-acre flag lot completely within a subdivision. And I'm not saying that the applicant had any sort of obligation to go and acquire the Whitley's property or to create this subdivision, but them creating the flagship lot is self-created.
So in lieu of what you're terming creating a flag lot, would it be a better situation for the subdivision to provide access to this parcel internal to the subdivision and do away with the flag?
Well, I don't think that could be
pole with the flag?
appropriate because they own the path in fees.
No, I'm saying, what if a driveway was connected to the internal subdivision street to this property and you could abandon the pole of the flag?
No,
Or they could keep it.
Or keep it.
Yeah.
I get what you're saying, but the
guess
fact
I'm
of the
just-
matter is to our knowledge, we don't know of any subdivisions in Johnston County that have many flag lots to begin with, number one. And number two, they certainly don't have one that's in the middle of the subdivision. Now, I get it, it's not part of the subdivision, but when you look at the site plan, it certainly goes and encompasses the entire property. So you can see why the Whitleys are opposed to this application.
Sorry to throw you off there.
No problem. That was a good question. I also want to go into section 14-354, which goes through the design requirements in the county zoning ordinance, and it speaks to not having structures or buildings that adversely affect neighboring properties or property owners, and those include things like a nuisance, hazard, unreasonable loss of light and noise, and as well as nuisances. So, Ms. Whitley, would you mind describing the adverse effects that your property will obtain from this subdivision?
We will have, I can't even begin to think of what it will bring, but we will have loss of privacy, peacefulness, the natural views. We'll have loss of solitude, security concerns, noise. 25 foot is not that far. Noise, glaring lights. There's a bedroom on that side of the house. There'll be glaring lights off and on. There's also, it creates a possibility for trespassing because those lots there's no buffer at all up that path, and somebody in their backyards, they may decide, hey, I'll get on my motorcycle and I'll just go on the path, or it creates the possibility of trespassing, and there's other issues that I can't even begin to think of, but we'll be smothered. It's just, I can't even imagine, how anybody would feel smothered like that.
Would you mind going to the next slide? This is to the second violation, is section 14-226, which states that major subdivisions to be located on a local road shall be designated that there shall be no more than one direct residential driveway connection per 500 feet along the same side of the road, unless there's a demonstration of some form of unreasonable hardship. So again, the street access on here would be to the left of the Whitley Road, but that's approximately 150 feet, so that's obviously less than the 500 foot requirement, and as well as the Whitley Road to Street D is approximately 300 feet. So this, again, fails the standard under section 14-226. And any sort of deviation from this 500-foot requirement would create many safety issues for the ingress and egress, not only from the Whitley's property and their road, but also the closeness of the streets to their road and as well as the subdivision. And also, as Mr. Oliver explained, that he will completely lose his access with his farm equipment to his property if the subdivision goes into place, because the subdivision lots will go over that cart path. I just think that using an access street, as he mentioned, and I think what the developers have proposed, to have farm equipment traverse a residential access road is problematic in itself. Having heavy equipment go over the Street A access will not only heavily damage the road, but it won't be compatible or necessarily harmonious with a sort of residential use with this heavy farm equipment. And the Whitleys are also very concerned, too, that if this development is ultimately approved, then what happens to that cartway path easement? So ultimately, we would like to go and see, at the very least, if this project moves forward, is to have some sort of agreement or public record in place that would go and extinguish that path that on the Whitley's property, so that Mr. Oliver or any future owners can't come back and go and say, well, we can't now use the street access anymore, so we need to go back and use the previous path. So again, that's the second violation of the Article 3 subdivision
Let me
ordinance.
ask you a question there. So the cart path, is the cart path a recorded easement?
It says path on that plat, so I assume it's an easement created by plat. I have it.
Where is it on these?
I'm looking at it, just to make sure I understand the location of it as well. So obviously on the pole of the flag, it follows within that boundary.
Yeah, if
and
you wouldn't
the
mind
same
going
driveway is
4 or 5 slides back.
you use to access the house. It appears that it turns slightly south onto the adjacent property, maybe as you pass the rear barn that's on Miss Whitley's property. Am I thinking about that correct?
I was thinking it was before, you got to the barn. I was thinking that it cut before you got to the barn.
Cuts just a little bit south onto the adjacent property.
This is the
Yeah.
plat,
Yeah,
this is the
it's
plat that
prob-
created lot 2, which is the Whitley lot.
Okay.
And this is the flag, with the pole portion of the flag lot here.
Mm-hmm.
And this is what appears to be the existing path is designated on the plat, and you can see as it jogs into the RRT property and then comes back into the Oliver.
Okay.
But it's farther up than the barn. It's farther up toward the house than the barn.
Okay. Where it jogs over onto the adjacent RRT property. Okay. That's helpful. Thank you.
And it's in that 25-foot buffer. Right.
Appears to me. Okay. Thank you. Does that answer you? Okay. Thanks, sir.
If you wouldn't mind, go ahead. Oh, back. And this goes into the third violation is the safety and general welfare of the future owners in the community, and as well as the adequacy of things like the sewage, parks, schools, playgrounds, and other public requirements. 3 reasons for that is Grabtown Road is already a dangerous road with many curves and blind spots that Ms. Whitley will go and get into in a little bit more detail, as well as an increase in stormwater runoff from the subdivision onto the Whitley's property, as well as the creeks that are run behind their properties that eventually feed into the Neuse River, and as well as the non-existent or the overburdening of county services in the Brogden area. So if you wouldn't mind going to the next slide there. Here's a picture of Grabtown Road, and I'll let Ms. Whitley speak to this road and her personal knowledge of the dangerous conditions.
Okay. Well, you can see the way the road curves, and you can see the 3 roads, and then you can see the Charlestown Phase 1 and 2. You can't see Charlestown Phase 3, but you can see 1 and 2, and just beyond that, which you can't see on this, is Brogden Road. I mean, it's no ways to Brogden Road. So one thing you've got right here, you've got the curves and blind spots. You've got 1, 2, 3 roads out of that subdivision. Then you've got 3 more out of Charlestown. You've got 6 roads in less than a mile. I mean, it's not far. But that is a bad curve, as you can see. This is what people will coming from one direction, and when you're headed back on the other direction, you can't see either way. And can you even begin to imagine a school bus? Because I would doubt if these school buses will go up into subdivisions like this. They will probably get at the end of the road, because it's not like it goes from one side to the other, and especially in the dark, a school bus being parked on the other side of that curve, and it's just very dangerous. And coming back on the other way, it's not as a distinct curve, but it is a curve, and it is a blind spot. You've got woods, and that same way, you've got woods blocking both sides of the roads now, so you can't see either way. You have no line of sights either way. And if you will look back there at the 2 or 3 silver top long buildings back, I would say that's a fatality. There was a fatality right in that area back in 2007, I believe it was, and then farther on back, of course, it would be farther on back, in 2011, there was a fatality. So this is already a very dangerous road, and we're talking about putting all these houses with roads coming out that are not 500, that are, well, even if they were 500 foot, in these cases, they're blind spots, but they don't meet the standards, and they put everybody in very hazardous positions throughout there. You know, I don't have a picture of the other side, but like I said, it's not as definite of a curve, but it's a curve, and there's woods that obstruct the views.
And Ms. Whitley, could you speak to the conditions of Grabtown Road?
Well, all the roads in that area, you know, are worn, and so they have a lot of sand trucks. They're going through there, and here lately we've had a lot of. We've also had logging trucks, so there's been a lot of heavy trucks going up and down it. But there's on Grabtown Road there is like a land quarry or whatever where they go get sand. So it's traveled, and they run up and down it fast, and it's already a dangerous road without the curves, and I mean people drive fast. And
I know I've stopped you a couple of times, but we're at 20 minutes now. So.
We're talking, and excuse me, but this is kind of a unique situation. I think everybody would agree. And we're talking for 9 family members that are impacted. And my cousin, Sandra Broom, gave me her time. So we got 10 people that but we're going to move on along.
Move along, please. Thank you.
And next slide. And could you speak a little bit to the stormwater and erosion concerns that you currently have on the property, and then how the development will impact that?
Well, the land is got slopes and all, but we currently, if it has a heavy rain, we already get where the water washes, the path gets gullies and all, and my husband has to go and scrape the paths. And so, you know, if we put more pavement, more cement, that there's less water, less place for it to soak in, so it'll just make it compounded.
And can you go to the next slide, please? And this is a picture you took, is that correct?
It is. And it just shows that there's already erosion. You can see there's already erosion. So that is not speculation or anything. And it runs right into, right there's where one of the streams that run, the water run off into the stream and then goes on back into Balcom Branch and in the river.
And next slide. And these are some of the branches that you're referring to.
It does. It shows the slope there as it. That's right there near the house. Now there you can see the house is close to the to that path there.
Next slide. And this is a map that you created. Is that right?
It is right. And what this shows, it shows that already from Charlestown, you've got water coming out from Charlestown into branches that run into to end up in Neuse River. And then you've got RRTs that one goes into a different branch that runs into Neuse River, and then this on this side goes into a closer, and we are not that far. We're within walking distance to the river. We're in the watershed, and this property and property owned back this way is within a mile and less of the river. And it runs off into the downstream property that we have get damage from as well.
Okay, next slide. So Samantha Krupp, I believe she sent you all a report that she had. She's testified in this case before. Unfortunately, she had a prior obligation to be in Oregon for this meeting, but she did send you all a report. So at this time, I'd like.
May I object to this possible report coming in? I've never seen this. We don't know anything
We have
about
it right there.
Guys got it?
Yes.
Anyway, we object to the record anyway, so.
And that wasn't trying to be behind the applicant's back. I think she sent it directly to staff, so.
It was her staff that numbers. I think unless.
Or maybe the planning board received it.
Quasi-judicial hearing, these two city judges, they shouldn't be getting stuff outside of this hearing. But go ahead.
Oh, well, excuse me, can I just ask a question on that? I thought that expert opinion, and the only reason she's not here is because she would have been here in person, but she was out of town. She had to go to Oregon, you know, and so I didn't, does that mean that her professional, I mean, I don't understand.
We'll take advice from our counsel on that. We did receive an email on Monday, October 17th. It does not appear that this email was also sent to staff or council. So go ahead and continue with your presentation.
Okay. Well, I'm just going to summarize briefly of what she says in there about how the stormwater materials that the applicants have provided have not adequately addressed the negative impacts to the Neuse River and the surrounding lands. She had a lot of concerns that the subdivision did not have any open space, which can help mitigate some of those stormwater runoff concerns. She also pointed out that applicant did not provide any information or explanation in their report of how the stormwater reduction post-development would be achieved. She also indicated that the existing pond has significant algae currently in there, and that this is likely due to already existing stormwater runoff issues from the current agricultural land. And that by removing more vegetation and adding more impervious surface will contribute to the runoff that will go into the branches, which will ultimately feed into the Neuse River. Which again, this is a picture right here of Holcomb Creek, which she opined that will receive a lot of stormwater runoff from the subdivision. And will greatly impact the erosion, sedimentation, and impact of water quality and aquatic habitat. And there have been no plans in place by the applicant of how they will go and keep impervious surface, stormwater runoff from going into and already muddying the creeks that eventually feed into the Neuse River. So she recommended that at the very least that you all use your discretion and require the developer to reduce their number of lots and require an open space instead of the payment in lieu of open space requirement. Next slide. So I want to go and briefly, there's a report by Brian or Brooks Moore, who is the Chief of Facilities and Construction for Johnston County.
School capacity is not something we can consider with subdivision, so in the interest of time, you might want to move on to other items.
Well, I do think it's relevant to the section 14-131, but if in the interest of time you don't want me to go through that, I do think that there was a lot of school capacity issues set forth in his report that actually coincide with the report that's in staff's.
And we've got that data in the staff report, and it is a concern of ours, but.
And he was here earlier.
Yeah, he was.
Okay, fair enough. We'll move on. Ms. Whitley, will you please go through a little bit of the overburdening of the county services in the Brogdon neighborhood?
Well, we've just got the volunteer fire department, and it's, they have, all of them have full-time jobs, and it is, let me see, what slide number is this?
17.
17, okay, 16, 17. Okay. And it puts our safety at risk. I mean, this is about the community safety as well. You know, that should be a big thing, the community safety, but it puts our safety, and they are already stressed. They're wonderful. They do a good job, but just to continue to add more houses, they're right now building the Charlestown 3, and there's 43 or 46 lots on that. So it's just overstraining the capacity. And our EMS is out of Smithfield. As far as the internet is terrible in that area. Unless they've got plans to get somebody there, there's no internet in, you know, unless they get a satellite right there. Phone service is bad, the road conditions. There's no playgrounds. The residents walk the roads and ride bikes the roads because we have no parks or recreation area in the Brogden community.
Next slide. So I'll briefly go through how the subdivision doesn't meet the other requirements in the ordinance, particularly dealing with overcrowding and congestion, and then the preservation of the rural character and agricultural uses of the neighborhood and not compatible or harmonious with the neighborhood itself. Next slide. So here I just want to go through, to the left there are the different sections of the zoning ordinance that set forth that the policy of the zoning ordinance is to manage growth in the county, and as well as to avoid inappropriate concentration of population. And the definition of the agricultural rural district is to encourage the continuance of agricultural uses while also appropriate density to provide a healthy environment. So here, these are the existing subdivisions in close proximity to the Brogden area. Now, numbers 1 through 10 from Brogden Woods to Gardner's Place is either in the Brogden neighborhood or approximately a mile or two away. And then 11 through 17 are probably within 5 or 6 miles. So again, there's already a high existence of subdivision currently in this area of the county. Next slide. And here are just the subdivisions since in 2020, 2021, and 2022 that have been approved by this board within about 20 miles of the Brogden area. And there's approximately 35 on this list. Approximately 25 of them are anywhere from 12 number of lots in the subdivision all the way up to 88. So again, it shows the vast number of subdivisions that are already in this area of the county. Next slide. So I'll be a little bit more concise with my next arguments, goes to the preservation of the rural area. As you can see on this map, it shows that all of the area surrounding the subject property and the Whitley's property, all of that in red there is farm and agricultural uses. And so you can see the number of sections in the ordinances, or the zoning ordinance, as well as the comp plan, try to preserve farmland in the rural character of this existing neighborhood. And just wanted to note that the future land use map designates this area as agricultural conservation area and not a primary growth area. And here this dovetails into compatibility and harmonious with the rural Brogden community. This community consists of predominantly very, very large lots and parcels that range in size of anywhere from 1 acre, which is very few, all the way to the hundreds and thousands of acres. And so all these numbers here correlate to the acreage of each of these parcels. So as you can see there, all the way at the bottom, there's a 1,100 acre parcel, 473, and so again, this is not compatible with a high density, 33,000 square foot lots with a predominantly rural, agricultural, and large lot area of the county. So again, and looking through a lot of the ordinances about minimizing incompatibility, preserving rural character, and the preservation of agricultural uses, putting a subdivision in this community would not be compatible or otherwise harmonious. Next slide. I just want to briefly mention that if this board's going to go and deviate through, more particularly some of the standards that I've already referenced in the subdivision ordinance, you know, the design manual specifically says that you're allowed flexibility, but that flexibility has to be equal to or more appropriate to safe, orderly, and visually harmonious development. So in other words, it's got to be at least as stringent as the standards in the design manual. So again, we contend that they have not met particularly the street requirement. We contend that they did not meet the flagship requirement, and also section 14-131 regarding the safety and general welfare, which I may add was specifically cited in the order that you all adopted when you guys denied RRT's application the second go-around in May. Next slide. And again, I just sort of want to go through the burdens on the applicant for approval of this subdivision. I also cited a provision in the zoning ordinance that essentially states that they also have to be in compliance with the applicable regulations of the zoning ordinance. And I also cited a Landville Properties case that goes through the difference between a subdivision ordinance and the zoning ordinance itself. I'm happy to give that to you all. I know we're extending on our time. But I just wanted to go through that the applicant has failed to meet their burden in this case. And I'm going to go and let Ms. Whitley just briefly summarize her position. And again, I appreciate y'all's time. Sorry for the long presentation.
And, you know, I apologize too, but we all know that this is a unique situation. I bet it's just unique, and it has so many things, and there's nobody up there or nobody with RRT or their whole group that would not be in the same position that I'm in. So I'm going to try to read, I need to read this. So each piece of land surrounding is unique and has distinctive features that has to be considered and accounted for based on these are violations to the flag lot, to the the 131, which y'all stated was one of their reasons for denying. Well, let me just say. And as planning board member, Mr. Caldwell said, things are broken, and he's correct. This Grabtown Road subdivision violates a significant number of Chapter 14 ordinances. And Chapter 14 ordinances, you can't pick and choose what you follow and what you don't. And it puts the subdivision and Brogden community residents in harm's way. You've been provided with materials that are undisputable and evidence that back up violations that we're talking about. And we're not blaming anybody for past approvals, and understand you can't deny based on word of mouth only, that you have to have, understand that you call out actual ordinance violations and present the documentations. But we have shown documentation, and I have given documentation in past meetings, and while the rule of character might not is in the comprehensive plan, it's also the spirit and intent within these regulations too. And the applicant has not has continued to disregard and not conform with a lot of the regulations that and in the ordinance and those noted in the findings and facts. And their calculations, they did a lot of stormwater, and the calculations are, when you talk about speculative, you know, they're speculative because any information on rain, flooding, runoff, erosion will always be speculative because they are godly events and the aftermaths or occurrence are none that we can control. So the varying slopes of the land, they do cause more erosion. I mean, that the impacts will be impacts, but you can't tell how much they'll be. Open space, less and bigger lots designed based on limited infrastructure safety consideration in regard to the watershed, the people, the environment, wildlife. There are the ways to conform and rectify violations, you know. And this development does pose a danger to the health and safety and general welfare, which was cited in 131 of the community residents and the subdivision residents. And the roads were out of violation, and then the curves. There's just some roads that you just can't fix, and these are situations that you just can't fix. You know, the blind curves and the blind spots there. And as I mentioned, the two fatalities, one 10 to 15 within 10 to 15 years. Well, one of them 10, one 15 years. And then I don't know about how many accidents, but anyway, I know about the fatalities. The paying a fee rather than open space. Like we talked about, the Brogdon didn't have the parks and recreation, that walking and riding bicycles, you know, on roads that, you know, that we're trying to put more vehicles on. The fire department's outstanding, but it's volunteer and doesn't have an overwhelming roster. And the people that's coming and moving in are not joining the fire department, you know. There no emergency responders right there other than the volunteer fire department. The problematic with the internet and stuff of that, incompatible with the adjacent properties, and the river keeper said she had continued to have issues and doesn't feel that all areas have been addressed, and states that she feels like they are taking bare minimum actions, and the approval of this would be violating multiple land development codes, ordinances, mission statements, sworn oath of offices of commissioners of y'all, and the rights of us and our residents. And there's no excuse for a developer not being required to know and adhere to all these ordinances. They can't pick and choose or be allowed to pick and choose which ordinance they want to follow. They should know that if there are conflicting ones, the most stringent one and the one incorporating the higher standard prevails. And the planning staff and authorities should not make concessions for them because they don't do their due diligence. They should know before they buy the property of all these issues and impacts. And we shouldn't be the ones. Adjoining landowners, area residents, and communities should not be held responsible and victimized because the developers did not do proper research on the property and potential impacts. Community safety. This is community safety we're talking about. This is our lives. They will be gone. They're not there. This is us, my grandchildren, my children, these other residents, the subdivision residents. These are, safety has to be top priority and foremost consideration of the planning board members. These are referenced, all of them are a part of the actual ordinances and reasons that warrant the denial of the subdivision proposal. Lastly, the applicant did not meet their burden of presenting substantial, competent, and material evidence to show that the development would conform with all of the applicable regulations contained in the subdivisions ordinance or as required by your findings of fact. Some of that 131 is in your findings of fact. And as stated in section 14176B, the subdivision ordinance, the board is to base their findings of approval on the conformity of all, it said all, and applicable regulations contained within the subdivision ordinance. The applicant has not met or adhered to all of the applicable regulations and therefore should be denied approval for the Grabtown Road proposal.
Thank you,
And
ma'am.
thank you for y'all's time, and, I'm sorry for it.
Can I ask Ms. Whitley just a few questions?
Yes, sir. Oh, well, hang on, let them finish.
Can I have just one brief comment? And I'm not blaming these guys, and they have no obligation. But at the end of the day, from what Ms. Whitley has told me, they haven't one time reached out to Ms. Whitley before, during the respective hearings. So that's why Ms. Whitley had to go and have an attorney at the last hearing, and that's why she has me here. Sure. To go and protect her property for herself and her family. So I just want you guys to, again, understand why our presentation took so long, why she is so passionate. We really respect y'all's time, and thank you very much for listening. But I just want to put that in sort of in the context. And again, I'm not blaming these guys. They don't have any legal obligation to go and do so. But if something could have been worked out, we might not even be here, right?
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir, you had a couple questions.
Yeah, Ms. Whitley, none of the testimony that you gave
Let- We'll get up to the mic if you don't mind. Sorry, I know it's awkward.
Ms.
but-
Whitley, none of the testimony you're giving today do you consider to be expert testimony, do you?
I consider it to be expert.
Okay, and in what area you're an expert?
Well, I know that it's going to be, I think everyone on this board, along with every commissioner, and probably everyone sitting in this room, you included, know that this, well, you can tell the adverse effect that it will have on me and my family.
I understand.
So that is firsthand expert. Speculation, y'all come up with the stormwater stuff. That is speculation because I said God is the only way that controls the wind, the rain. But when you say something about harmonious and compatible or rural, if you have National Geographic and you have all these different places that say about the same definition, maybe different words, but it's the same, and these are respectable places, that's expert. And that's where I'm getting myself. All the information that was given came off of county website. That's what we do. That's what we rely on. I mean, as far as expert, I'm not an expert. No, but I'm in some things that I can address these things in a truthful. And 131, they do have adverse effects. Our fire department is a volunteer fire department, and there are some things that are common sense. I mean, there are some things that you have to apply that common sense to. And some.
And I recognize you've got concerns, okay? These folks are sitting as judges, right? They've got to base it on competent evidence, okay? Part of that competent evidence is expert opinion, right? Expert opinion. Do you have any reason to, do you have any reason to doubt the computations that this expert made regarding runoff?
I say that there's nobody that can say there's no expert that can say about runoff. We have
They do the best they can do.
Well, that's right. We do the best we can
That's
do.
right.
We do the best we can do. So no, that's not
So the
expert.
answer to the question is, you don't have any reason to doubt his computations.
Oh, I doubt the fact that I don't think he can give. I doubt that they're expert. I mean,
There's no, in other words, there's nobody that does what this gentleman does that can actually give competent evidence about that issue.
Well, let me say this. I don't know that I read all that. I said in it that there's no, I said you can't you can't say how much you think there's going to be. What I say, the expert is that there is going to be adverse effects, and people cannot, these numbers are speculative. The only thing I say is there is adverse effects, and that, I mean, that's what I say on that.
Okay, and you understand that when and if these folks grant preliminary plat approval, I don't know if you were here for the chairman's discussion before we started these quasi-judicial hearings, but you understand that they still got to go get a permit on stormwater, you still got to go get a permit on erosion.
May I
Yes, ma'am.
interject?
All right, hang on just a second, all right. You have do you have direct questions for her? I think we definitely understand the definition of competence, and, okay. Thank you, ma'am.
Can I redirect?
Yes, sir.
All right. Ms. Whitley, you said you're not have an expert in stormwater, is that correct?
No, I'm not.
But you do have personal knowledge on a lot of the stuff that you
Oh,
testified
yeah, I
today,
mean,
is that right?
That is true, because we have
Yes,
to,
ma'am.
with flooding.
With flooding, the dangerous road
and-
conditions,
And dangerous roads, I mean,
county
that's-
services,
that's
right?
That is, I mean, that's factual.
The neighborhood that you purchased the property in and lived in and your family has
Right.
lived in, is that right?
That is correct, all of our lives.
So I'm assuming opposing counsel is just getting to stormwater, is that right? Because I never tendered her into any sort of expert capacity.
No, well, in any capacity, are you operating, are you testifying as an expert, what's the basis for that expertise? That's simply the question, whether it be, for example, did you get, look at any traffic studies, did you get data to provide these folks so they can make a decision?
I know of 2 fatalities, I know.
She can testify
the-
to dangerous
the
conditions.
picture
There's case law that goes and supports that.
of that blind curve with woods on, and you didn't see the other side, but there's woods on the other side as well. I mean, Mr. Oliver can testify to that as well.
Okay, yes, ma'am, we understand. We understand,
let me
hang
say-
on, hold on, I'm the chair. We understand the difference between competent expert testimony and firsthand observations of a party, which you're a party to this. So we understand the difference between the two. We understand and we evaluate your opinion. We understand and appreciate your opinions and observations.
But that
Thank you.
ain't opinion.
And we understand your concern as well.
Okay,
Thank
and one more
Briefly.
thing. When he mentioned that, I did try I text from May to July, one of the property owners, one of the RRT, I texted them very cordially and wanted to sit down and talk with them. Never did I get a text or anything. They would not talk to me at all.
Okay.
Finally, I did get to talk with one. I'm sure they would not have answered my phone call had they known who it was. And then I talked with them, and I tried to offer. I did offer to purchase some buffer and pay them a little more than what they paid, to at least get some buffer, and that would help the smothering of the house. And they said it was not work for the property or something like that. But they're doing roads within like a little over one of them 100 foot of our road, and that deviates from your normal thing.
Thank you, ma'am.
And
We appreciate that.
I'm sorry, and I appreciate it.
Yes,
And
ma'am.
I appreciate all your
Appreciate it.
time.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else have any additional testimony as it relates to Grabtown Road that has not already been covered? I think you've had your say. Anyone else have any? Well, I gave you the time from the applicant. Yes, sir.
Step up.
Yes, sir.
I want you to address, first of all, this issue. Did this subdivision plan create a flag lot? I think the chairman's actually covered that, but.
Mr. Chairman, I'm Mike Stocks, 81 East Wash Street, Nashville, North Carolina.
Thanks, sir.
And again, I'll be as concise as I can.
do I need to address the issue about the flag lot, or do you understand that it was already created, excuse me, prior to the subdivision?
Yes, sir, I think we understand that.
I'm done with that.
Thank you.
It's an existing flag lot.
Yes, sir.
The second issue that was a request for denial was the fact that the driveways were more than, 500 foot within each other. I'm not sure where the 105 and the 305 came from. They're listed on your plat. One is a little over 546 feet, and the other drive is, I'll give you the exact distance.
Yes, sir, I saw it on the plat.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
And there's a difference between a DOT street and a driveway.
Yes,
So,
sir.
okay, so this is a residential driveway versus a street. So,
Yes, sir.
I'm done with that issue, if that makes sense.
Yes.
And then thirdly, there was an issue about the access to the Oliver property. Initially, when we came in here, working with staff, the top right corner cul-de-sac curved and did not gain access to that. At the request of this board and that, we stubbed the street to that. That is going to be an NCDOT street that unlocks a landlocked piece of property. And again, there's nothing to prevent farmers or anyone from driving down a public NCDOT road that will go straight to that property. So we unlocked a piece of property. We didn't lock a piece of property. That was. Is there any other questions or concerns that you guys or you would like to ask me?
No. I have just one. Street A, is that the street you're talking about unlocking to go
Yeah,
to?
so, yeah, that street A used to curve and cul-de-sac at the end, and at the request of this board, we added, I guess, is that street G, Kevin? Or street B or G?
G.
G. So we added that and stubbed directly to the Oliver property that would give it public road access. And as far as, I don't know what Mr. Oliver's plans are on the development or not development of his property, but we are building a road up to the property line, and if he chooses to continue that road on his property, that's his business. It's not RRT's business to go on private property and build a street on adjacent property.
Thanks, sir. All right, we'll bring it back to staff.
Thanks, sir.
Yes, sir.
Staff recommendations, preliminary approval, subject to the conditions and requirements in the staff report.
Thanks, sir.
Can I say a few things?
You absolutely may.
For the 4 tracks for Mr. Oliver, do you have, I was going to ask him this question, do you have, since it is farmland, do you have the farmland in the intent of putting it into a voluntary ag district or considering putting it into a voluntary ag district?
Right now, that's up in the air. I've thought about conservation, but right now, as I said, it's been managed by an hunt club for the last 20 years and for tobacco corn.
Okay. Because if it was, I would just highly recommend putting it into a voluntary ag district, because then it would be known and highlighted on the GIS that all the residents in the subdivision would know there is an active farm nearby.
Thank you for that, but I appreciate that.
Can I say something to the Grabtown?
No, ma'am, we've closed the public hearing. Thank you.
And then, I mean, I do have concern that that street is 33 lots and having heavy farm equipment go down that street.
Industrial as well.
Hang on.
Because that has been brought up as a point of concern for a previous subdivision we have talked about. That is a concern. However, like I said, that is, now they have, I do appreciate the development of having created a stub out. So then that way there is direct access to the property, and how they have gone and added additional buffers. And also they have added additional buffers to the Whitley property, because like I said, that has not, I have not seen that before in a subdivision before, of adding personal buffers to an adjacent property owner. Those are what I want to say.
Okay. Very good points. I will just say too, I mean, despite my apparent callousness on the time, I certainly understand that I wouldn't necessarily want my parcel surrounded by a subdivision either, and I certainly understand that a there's a lot of development happening in this area. I saw you doing some math on what had been approved in the area, and it is quite a lot. And I'm glad we've got a new comp land use plan, and I'm hopeful that we're going to have some land use ordinance changes in the future that are going to change development in the county. But we have the ordinances that we have, and again, we can leave it to the board to discuss, but I think the applicant did an excellent job presenting the case, presenting competent testimony, particularly when you have sealed stormwater reports from a professional engineer, and you got two professional engineers on this board. I think they did an excellent job making their case from that standpoint of meeting the codes and ordinances.
I would certainly not consider the stormwater calculations that we were provided speculative in the lease. They were sealed by a licensed professional engineer. So I have great merit in what I'm looking at here.
Which do, by the way, show that the stormwater runoff will be less with the proposed development.
That's correct.
Any other comments or discussion? Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion.
Could we add not necessarily a condition or signage or something maybe at the end of the public road for Mr. Oliver's property to say that they are entering private property?
I'm sure Mr. Little will understand the statement. We will put a type 3 NCODOT barricade at the end of the road, which is a 3-bar line that's orange and white with reflective paint or tape on it, signifying that you're getting ready to go through a wooden fence.
State maintenance ends or whatever.
Whatever.
And we do have some signage requirements for stub streets anyway.
Okay.
We will accept that condition.
Thank you.
I'll just have to say that I've gone on record many times of being empathetic to the burden that development has been placed on emergency services for being a member of the emergency services. I believe that Ms. Whitley and her council has put a lot of time and effort in this, and I appreciate her passion. And I'm empathetic to the fact that she will be surrounded by lots, but we are beholden to regulation, and from the changes that the applicant has made, I move that we approve as per the staff recommendation. Well, along with the condition of that they. Okay, all right, so it's on there. Just make sure we got that in there.
Okay. All right, I have a motion for approval by Mr. Moore.
A second.
Second by Ms. Hackler. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, Grabtown Road is approved. Hennett Farm East.
Till the first night, huh?
Yeah.
Hennett Farm East, Hennett Edgerton Road LLC is the owner.
Mr. Chair.
Myland Inc.
Yes, ma'am.
Can we wait just?
Hang on just a second, Brett. Todd, sorry.
Okay.
We'll let him clear out. And then
Yes, sir.
And then you said you needed to recuse yourself.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
I need to recuse myself from this item.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Moore, sorry about that.
No problem. Hennett Farm East, owner Hennett Edgerton Road LLC, developers Myland Inc., surveyor is Sanderson Engineering. Its location is 5202 Hennett Edgerton Road, just east of Old Bagley Road in the Micro Township, served by Micro Fire and North Johnston Rescue. 110.4 acres, 99 lots proposed, Johnston County Public Water, individual septic, traffic count for this road was 300 vehicles per day in 2019. This portion of Hannah-Edgerton Road does not appear on the comprehensive transportation plan as needing improvement. A reverse frontage buffer is required along Hannah-Edgerton Road.
Thank you, sir. Any questions of staff? All right, who would like to be heard on behalf of Hennett Farm East?
Good evening. My name is Stephen Sanderson with Sanderson Engineering. The plan that you have before you, I've drawn according to the Johnston County ordinances. Some of the things that always get asked, there is a mailbox kiosk on each side of this particular development. We did not connect the two sides because of an existing creek that comes out of the pond, and I saw no need for the environmental impact that it would create, especially since there's only 300 cars a day that come down Hennett-Edgerton Road, even though it is considered a collector street. But that's because of the other end of it. And we have the voluntary ag district. There is one within a half a mile, and that is noted on our plat and will be. If you have any specific questions of me, I will be happy to answer them, but I don't want to carry on any longer than necessary.
And thank you for your patience.
Yeah. You got the short end of the long
I have
stick,
the
didn't
distinct
you?
honor and high privilege of being last.
On lot 44, the cemetery, will that convey with the lot, or will that be handled?
That's actually a separate piece.
Okay.
And that's not part of the lot. That is it's already a cemetery lot.
Okay.
And then what about the overhead power lines?
It's there.
Okay.
Or actually, that one's not. It's being constructed right now.
Okay.
But it will be there by the time we get through putting it in.
So that's aerial.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Okay.
How about the ponds? How are they, are they being maintained by HOA? Are
No,
they
they-
owners?
They will each, whatever portion is in that lot will belong to that lot. There is no open space in this because of the size of it. We would have to do like 16 acres of open space, and it's just not feasible or economically possible.
And you're showing 2 ponds on this?
Yes, ma'am. There's, where they show up, the little triangle one at the bottom, I think, I'm not exactly certain what that is. It's been described to me by my wetlands guy, but it's more of a watering hole that was somebody's idea on the weekend. And I think that it will most likely go away. But I showed it because it's there today. The other pond is a real pond.
Okay.
Thanks, sir. Anyone else like to be heard as it relates to Hennett Farm East? Yes, sir. Thank you for your
Last of the
patience as well.
last.
You get the real high honor.
Sorry. Adam Boswell, 904 Lowell Mill Road. I'm representing the Boswell family. First time being in this, so please excuse my non-professional rhetoric when it comes to this sort of thing.
You've
um,
earned some deference for waiting this
Yeah,
long.
I have got a lot of witness, so heck of a first time.
And you said you represent the Boswells?
Yep, 885 Lowell Mill Road.
Okay, so that's the partial across of, across the street. right?
Across the street. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And my father previously passed away, and he had planned on in future buying this property. This all kind of happened real fast. We just kind of got a letter in the mail, and that's all said and done.
Sure.
Long story short, my concerns on this subdivision, it's a very large subdivision. It's going to bring a lot of population to the area, a very small area. My concerns is the traffic, the safety there. Also infrastructure-wise, as far as, EMS, fire, all that, being able to support this. That's all I have. Any questions?
Let me check something real quick before you drop. Okay. Sometimes we have information on our packet about the requirements from NCDOT about turn lanes or anything like that. I don't see that here.
According to Sam, with everything going on, they've been so swamped. Traffic counts, they're way behind on them, and they will be done, but not until later on.
Okay, all right. Yeah, so
So there's a
Possibility.
that there'll be a turn lane? Okay. Or not? Okay. The only reason I feel like there might be would because of that intersection and that curve. Like I said, that's
There's a bad curve in the hill.
That's what it looked like. That was my concern.
Any questions of the gentleman? Thank you, sir.
Thank y'all very much.
Yes, sir.
Long
Thank
night. Thank you.
Hasn't been our longest, though.
Surprisingly not.
No.
Okay. Bring it back to staff.
Staff recommendations, preliminary approval subject to the conditions and requirements in the staff report.
I would just like to note too, again, school capacity, echoing it again, that even though the enrollments are not at capacity, they're close to it.
Knocking on the door.
They're knocking on the door, and this wasn't the only one we approved tonight in these school districts. So I'd just like to go on record again by saying that.
Make a motion for approval.
Motion for approval, Mr. Little.
Second.
Second by Mr. Hudson. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Thank you. Farm East is approved. Staff, anything else for us this evening? Thank you all very much. Thank you, everybody, for your time.
That was a great meeting.
Thanks for moving it along. We'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
Second,
All right.
fifth, ninth.
Hear many? 4. All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right.
And happy baby